Hey guys, tonight we're slipping backward through the centuries, straight into the grime and grandeur of the Roman Empire. One moment you're nestled under cozy covers in the 21st century. The next you're blinking against the harsh Mediterranean sun, the scent of sweat dust and boiled cabbage thick in the air. You stand barefoot on uneven cobblestones, cloaked in a linen tunic that smells like it skipped several centuries' worth of laundry. There's shouting nearby Latin words barked at blistering volume, none of which you understand. A donkey nudges past you, indifferent to your modern sensibilities, and someone throws a clay pot of something unspeakable out a second-story window. You miss it by inches. Welcome to ancient Rome. You're hot, you're confused, and your first instinct is to check your phone. Except you don't have one, or shoes, or personal rights. The toga-clad crowd doesn't notice your confusion. They're too busy shouting at fishmongers, shoving through market stalls, and arguing with each other in a dialect that sounds oddly musical and dangerously fast-paced. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and what time it is where you're listening, especially if you're hearing this in the dead of night like a proper time traveler. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've been dumped into a city of over 1 million souls, technically impressive, practically chaotic. The year who knows sometime between Augustus and whichever emperor is currently claiming divinity while poisoning his relatives. The city's still technically a republic on paper, but everyone knows the emperor calls the shots, and you're just one more nameless body in the urban swarm. The air is thick with olive oil smoke and human ambition. Children dash barefoot between vendor carts, women carry amphorae balanced on their heads, and men in tunics gesture wildly about taxes, trade, or why Cicero was overrated. You catch snippets of heated debate over military conscription, the latest gladiator scandals, and something involving figs and moral decline. You nod politely and shuffle away, your feet already hurt. The stones beneath you are slick with something that may be water but probably isn't. A rat. Wait, no. That's a ferret. Possibly someone's pet scurries past. A flock of sacred geese honks at you from the steps of a temple. You're not sure what gods they represent, but they look judgmental. A passing man squints at you. "You there, slave or freedman?" he demands. You blink. He wrinkles his nose and moves on. Apparently you look poor, which in Rome means you're about one meal away from selling yourself into bondage. The smell is unforgettable. Not awful just. Aggressively organic. A blend of sweatfish sauce, animal dung over ripe fruit, and the sharp tang of public urinals. Scholars still debate whether the famed Roman engineering ever extended to deodorant, but the answer appears to be a resounding no. Your senses reel as you try to orient yourself. Marble temples shimmer in the sun next to crumbling wooden apartments stacked like beehives. Everything seems both ancient and alive. You realize that history is not a tidy museum. It's loud, sticky, and constantly about to fall over. You need water and shade, and probably legal counsel. You stumble toward a fountain only to realize it's decorative and also occupied by a drunk man arguing with his reflection. He offers to sell you a magic chicken feather for protection from the evil eye. You decline politely. He squints at you, hisses something and waddles off. A merchant offers you a fig. It's warm and slightly bruised, but your stomach growls with appreciation. Then he asks for 3 asses. You have no donkeys. You offer a grateful nod and shuffle backward. So far you've learned one important rule. Everything here smells stronger, moves faster, and requires more sandals than you own. A small child tugs your tunic and points to your wrist. No watch. Just a pale strip of skin where your smartwatch used to be. She giggles and runs away, and you suddenly miss Google Maps more than you ever thought possible. You overhear a street orator shouting about the glory of the Roman legions. He's standing on an overturned bucket, quoting Virgil, and flailing his arms. A small crowd claps, someone throws a turnip, and he ducks without missing a beat. He then accuses the Senate of being overrun by Greek philosophers with loose morals and expensive sandals. The crowd cheers. You wonder how far you are from civilization. Then you realize this is civilization, at least the Roman version of it. Despite the chaos, a certain rhythm emerges. You begin to notice patterns, the way the crowds move with the sun, how people instinctively avoid certain shadowed alleys, and how nobody looks up at the windows. Ever. Too many things fall from them, apparently. You try to speak to someone, Excuse me, do you know what year it is? But your accent is as foreign as your questions. The man blinks at you, replies in Latin, and gestures vaguely toward the forum. Go ask the augurs, he suggests, probably sarcastically. One fringe theory suggests the Romans had a peculiar sense of humor, dry-cutting, and mildly terrifying. You're starting to believe it. By midday, the sun is a blazing disk of judgment, and your armpits are betraying you. You duck under a colonnade hoping for some cool stone and anonymity. Instead, a small child throws a plum at your head and demands that you pay homage to Jupiter. You comply. The day is just beginning, and already you've tripped, sweated, sworn internally, and possibly broken 3 obscure Roman laws. You haven't even had breakfast. The Roman day starts earlier than you'd like, especially since sleep here is more of a suggestion than a guaranteed luxury. And the moment you wake groggy and aching from your impromptu nap under that colonnade, your problems multiply like amphorae at a wine merchant's stall. First things first, hygiene. You might assume personal cleanliness is universally prized. And yes, Romans are famous for their baths. But morning rituals, less glamorous. No fluffy towel, no lavender body wash. What you get is a cracked ceramic cup of vinegar water and a stick. You stare at the twig, which is frayed at one end. It's your toothbrush now. You attempt to mimic what others around you are doing, rubbing it over your teeth like it's meant to inspire them to behave. No mint, no foam, just you, vinegar breath, and a sudden appreciation for modern toothpaste. A man next to you snorts dismissively at your technique, then proceeds to spit a stream of red-tinted rinse that splashes against the wall with the force of a wine bottle being smashed in protest. Your own spit dribbles a little too politely, which earns you another disapproving grunt. You move on to your face. A small basin of water glistens nearby, lukewarm, cloudy, and vaguely lemon-scented. You splash some on your cheeks and feel marginally more human. Then you notice the shared rag next to it and recoil. Too late. You're already drying your face with the same cloth a dozen sweaty strangers have used. A young boy offers to clean your ears for a copper. You decline. He shrugs and trots off, disappearing into the early bustle of the streets. Just another day in Rome. Now about those toilets. Public and proud Roman latrines are communal by design. Long stone benches with carved holes, no dividers and no privacy. You quickly realize that shame is not a currency accepted here. You do your business while making uncomfortable eye contact with a centurion humming the Iliad and hope the shared sponge on a stick has been washed recently. It hasn't. Still recovering from that emotional trauma, you wander into a nearby courtyard where locals are already halfway through their breakfast. The term meal might be generous. A hunched woman hands you a hunk of rock-hard barley bread that could double as a weapon. You gnaw on it and feel something crunch that might have been an insect or your molar. A tin goblet of diluted wine is passed around. It's sour, slightly fizzy, and questionably warm. You take a sip, wince, and smile in the way only a desperate time traveler could. Hydration is hydration, even when it tastes like someone soaked raisins in vinegar and called it a beverage. Scholars remain divided on whether breakfast held any real importance to Romans. Some say it was merely practical, a quick bite before the real business of the day. Others argue it was symbolic, reflecting one's class and moral fibre. Either way, yours currently reflects desperation. A wiry man approaches, and with no preamble, lifts your tunic hem to inspect your sandals. You yelp. He nods, grumbles something about Gallic craftsmanship, and vanishes into the crowd. You check your shoes, or rather, the leather scraps pretending to be shoes, and notice a large, suspicious hole where your heel used to be. Roman footwear, for the record, was not designed for comfort. It's strips of hard leather strapped together like some kind of cruel lacing puzzle. The streets are unforgiving, and your arches are already composing a letter of resignation. As you hobble forward, a little girl tugs your hand and points toward the bakery queue. You join her out of instinct. Mistake. It's not a bakery, it's a fish sauce stall. The smell hits you like a philosophical crisis. Garum, the Roman condiment of choice, is made by fermenting fish guts in the sun. You gag. Everyone else seems delighted. One man enthusiastically describes his favorite way to drizzle it over dormice. You nod, smile weakly, and mentally abandon your appetite for the foreseeable future. You're jostled from behind. A merchant hands you a strange pastry, flat, salty, with something squishy in the middle. Try it, he urges. You do. It's surprisingly good. until he mentions the filling is mashed goat spleen. You nearly choke. There's no time to recover. A man in a finely dyed toga bellows at a crowd from atop a broken fountain. He's declaiming poetry, badly. No one seems impressed. A dog howls in solidarity. The man throws his hands in the air and storms off, claiming the muses have abandoned him. A young woman nearby stifles a laugh. "That's Publius," she whispers. "He thinks he's Virgil's reincarnation." You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. "Last week he tried to duel a cabbage. The absurdity keeps piling. A cart pulled by geese nearly runs you over. A small boy is selling blessings from Apollo for 2 denarii and a tooth. A man tries to rent you a goat for companionship. You decline, then worry the goat might be offended. And right when you think the strangeness has peaked, a robed augur walks past, swinging a dead chicken and muttering about Saturn's mood. The chicken appears deeply unbothered. You lean against a sun-warmed pillar, dizzy with culture shock and hunger. The city vibrates around you, every alley echoing with arguments, every square boiling with deals, boasts, flattery and petty theft. You try to remember how long you've been awake. An hour, 2. You spot a temple and consider wandering in for peace, but the entrance fee is your sandals. You pass. Someone shouts nearby. A street performer is balancing amphorae on his head while reciting a love poem to Minerva. The crowd claps, but not for him. For the stray dog that just relieved itself on his cloak. He doesn't notice. And amidst it all, a thought creeps in, soft, undeniable. You're definitely not going to last a full day here. Whisper one in the comments below if this tale charms your heart, or 2 if it sends shivers down your spine. Your belly growls again as you shuffle away from the crowd, applauding a urinated poet. The partial breakfast of questionable bread and goat spleen hasn't done you any favors, and the sun has officially decided to wage war on your skin. Every patch of shade is a battleground already claimed by loafing dogs, exhausted vendors, or a legion of sun-stroked citizens flapping at their faces with bits of parchment. You try to walk with purpose, an expression that might suggest you belong here, but your feet betray you with each clumsy step. These Roman streets aren't just bustling, they're a full-blown obstacle course. Carts creak, chickens scatter, and citizens barrel past like it's a civic sport. You veer left down a quieter alley, narrowly avoiding a bucket of mysterious runoff water. That's when you meet your next challenge, dressing like a Roman. Because currently you look like someone who lost a bet with history. Your tunic hangs awkwardly. Your belt is either too high or too low, judging by the stairs both at once, and the leather sandals are biting into your ankles like angry crabs. A pair of fashion-conscious matrons look you up and down. One raises a penciled brow. "Is that linen from Hispania?" She murmurs with the horror of someone spotting a counterfeit handbag. You mumble something about trade routes and step aside, only to snag your hem on a stray nail and nearly faceplant into a fruit stall. Your outfit isn't just ugly, it's dangerous. A helpful man named Marcus, who smells faintly of beeswax and civic duty, notices your struggle. He pulls you aside with an indulgent sigh. "Tunics backwards," he mutters, spinning you like a poorly wrapped gift. "And that belt, criminal." You try to thank him, but he's already dragging you toward a tailor's stall. The tailor is unimpressed. "You want to look Roman?" he asks, squinting. "You need layers." He gestures to the toga folded like origami on a shelf. Tunic under toga over, left shoulder covered, always. You're not a barbarian. You're not sure you can handle more layers, it's already sweltering. But before you can protest, the tailor begins wrapping fabric around your torso with the dedication of a man embalming a pharaoh. The toga is heavy, stiff, and utterly uncooperative. You end up looking like a half-deflated burrito. "Don't move too fast," he warns. Togas shift. Trip, and you'll flash half the forum. You believe him. Togas, it turns out, were not practical daily wear. Most Romans preferred the simpler tunic for regular life. The toga was ceremonial, worn for politics, legal matters, and impressing in-laws. Still, you're stuck with it now, sweating profusely and walking like you've just left a chiropractor. And then, there's the footwear. Your sandals are a joke, stiff, narrow, and completely unsuited to your modern arches. A nearby cobbler watches you limp and clicks his tongue. "Imported leather," he scoffs, pulling you into his stall. He rummages through a pile of mismatched sandals, muttering about Etruscans stitching Greek frauds and the golden age of calfskin. You lose track of his rant halfway through as he forces your foot into a new sandal that feels slightly less torturous. But even with improved shoes and a toga, you're far from blending in. Your posture's too upright, your pace too cautious, and you keep instinctively looking for crosswalks that don't exist. People start to notice. A gaggle of children follows you for a block, giggling and imitating your walk like you're the world's most awkward centaur. One even sticks a fig to the back of your toga and runs off shrieking with glee. An old man shouts from a window. Your folds are uneven. You glance up just in time to dodge a falling date. Whether it was meant as a snack or a weapon, you'll never know. You duck into a colonnade to regroup. Around you, Romans go about their day in varying degrees of overdress. Senators in snowy white togas gesture like they're directing traffic in a thunderstorm. Freedmen strut in tunics, dyed just bold enough to suggest wealth, but not enough to get arrested. And slaves dart between them, all efficient and invisible, with tunics so short they could qualify as napkins. Clothing here is status. Fabric color, hem length, dye quality, all of it sends a message. Yours says lost tourist from the fourth dimension. Experts still debate whether the average Roman truly noticed sartorial infractions or simply enjoyed judging. Either way, you're providing ample entertainment. Your next challenge, sitting. Togas weren't made for chairs. You try to settle on a stone bench and immediately feel the folds twist, slide and threaten to reveal more than Jupiter intended. You end up perched like a heron legs, clamped back arched, praying the fabric doesn't betray you. A man beside you nods in solidarity. First toga, he asks. You nod. He offers you a fig. You accept cautiously. It's warm and sweet, a momentary reprieve from your outfit-induced humiliation. Then a gust of wind hits. Your toga flips. The fig drops. Children laugh. Somewhere Jupiter snorts. It's barely midday, and you've already dressed wrong, stepped in something best left undescribed, and flash-mobbed an entire block by accident. Whose idea was this time travel thing anyway? You've survived dressing. Barely. Now you need to eat properly, this time with something that doesn't involve surprise organs or shared sponges. So you wander again, your toga, swishing like a deflated tent behind you, your new sandals squeaking ominously with each step. You're still hungry. But more than that, you're hopeful. Surely something edible exists in a city this big. Then the scent hits you. Warm, toasty, familiar. Something bread adjacent, with a hint of olives, and maybe hope. You follow it like a cartoon hound, weaving through carts piled high with turnips, onions, and the occasional turtle. You arrive at what passes for a breakfast stall, a crooked wooden stand manned by a leathery woman who looks like she hasn't blinked since Nero's first speech. She eyes you suspiciously. You point to a flaky golden thing bubbling in a small pan. Panis calidus, she grunts. Hot bread. You pay with a copper coin you found stuck in your sandal strap. She shrugs and hands it over. It's warm. It's chewy. It doesn't taste like feet or regret. You take another bite, and then you feel it. The crunch. You freeze. Slowly lower the bread. Peek inside. Ants. So many ants. The woman shrugs again. Extra protein, she says. You take another bite anyway. You're past caring. Tap 3 in the comments below if this story makes you smile, or 4 if it leaves you chilled. A group of workers nearby laughs as one of them accidentally drops his morning porridge into a sewer grate. Another man yells something about Mercury cursing the entire street. A few people look up nervously, like Mercury might actually show up and demand restitution. You turn a corner into the food market and find yourself suddenly enveloped in smells that range from heavenly to biohazard. There's cheese sweating on a slab of marble dates stuck together in a glossy mass of syrup and flies, and a jug of something that smells like a dare. You pass stalls selling cured meats, olives, soaked in questionable oil-dried figs, honey-dipped pastries, and a strange gelatinous cube that appears to be moving under its own power. You're handed something called moritum, a garlic and herb cheese paste mashed with vinegar. It's served in a leaf. You lick it cautiously. It's intense, like brushing your teeth with a salad. You nod appreciatively, then sneeze so hard your toga shifts again. A friendly baker invites you to try libum, a kind of cake offered to household gods and occasionally guests who look like they might cry. You don't cry, but you eat it like it's your last meal. It's soft sweet, made with cheese and honey, and blessedly insect-free. Probably. A scholar nearby leans over and tells you the recipe was recorded by Cato the Elder. You try to sound impressed. He goes on explaining how Cato also suggested enslaved workers be kept on diets of barley and beans for maximum productivity. You quietly take another bite of cake and back away. The crowd thickens as you near the central forum. People yell over each other, wave loaves of bread like protest signs, and argue about everything from grain prices to Saturn's latest temple renovation. A soldier chomps on a salted fish and explains to a merchant why Jupiter's statue needs a bigger lightning bolt. You keep walking. A man in a red cloak grabs your arm. "Citizen bread or circus?" he demands. You blink. Both. He laughs like it's the best answer he's ever heard and vanishes into the crowd. You finally spot a man selling what appears to be soup, except it's being poured into hollowed-out loaves of bread. You order one. He ladles a chunky stew into the bowl, with the flair of a magician revealing his final trick. You take a bite. It's hot, oddly metallic, and possibly includes lentils, leeks, and chicken. Maybe. No one really knows what's in Roman street food. Ingredients shift like sand dunes. Historians guess, but even they admit the ancient cookbooks leave gaps. Scholars still debate whether some dishes were culinary delights or subtle crimes. You don't care. It's warm, salty, and filling, and that's enough. As you finish, you notice people around you slowing down. Not physically, but mentally. Post-breakfast torpor has settled in. Conversation's quiet. The air thickens, and in the distance someone begins to hum. Then disaster. A man across the plaza bites into something and immediately screams. He throws his food on the ground and curses the gods. A priest nearby glares and shouts about blasphemy. A centurion appears from nowhere shouting about order. Everyone shouts back. You casually slip behind a column and pretend to study a very important fresco of Neptune. Moments later, a baker's stall is overturned and flour flies like snow. The centurion chases someone into the forum fountain. A dog steals a ham and runs off triumphantly. You step over spilled lentils and sidestep a wrestling match between two old women fighting over a basket of leeks. One of them bites. You do not intervene. And just like that, the riot subsides. Flour settles. Chickens are gathered. Life resumes. You sit on a bench, panting sticky, vaguely greasy, and deeply aware that you're not cut out for this era. You thought food would be the easy part. But here, even lunch is a full-contact sport. You sit there for a while, crusted with a fine dusting of flour and dignity loss, licking the last remnants of honey from your fingertips. Your stomach, now about 40% garlic, has calmed slightly. But as the market chaos subsides, and the sun climbs mercilessly overhead, a new realization dawns on you. It's loud here. Relentlessly loud. Romans don't do quiet. Quiet makes them nervous. In fact, if you hear silence in the city, it's probably a sign that something has gone very, very wrong, like an assassination, a fire, or the Senate agreeing on something. Which is to say, almost never. The streets of Rome pulse with constant competing noise. Merchants shout their prices over one another. Goats bleat from cart beds. Pottery clinks, dogs bark. People argue about everything from taxes to toga dye. There's no rhythm, just a layered cacophony. You feel it like a second heartbeat. A group of fishmongers nearby argue furiously over who owns a rotting tuna. A child drums on an empty amphora with 2 sticks. A street preacher climbs onto a column base and begins describing the end of the world in such dramatic fashion that a woman faints. No one helps her. Apparently she does this every Thursday. Then comes the smell. Oh, the smell. Modern sewage systems have spoiled you. Here the streets double as drainage. Open gutters channel every bodily fluid and kitchen runoff into sluggish streams. You look down at your feet and realize, yes, you are standing in a river of diluted regret. You hop out of it with the grace of a startled pigeon and land in something squishier. You don't want to know. Scholars remain divided on just how bad Rome actually smelled. Some ancient writers, notably those with country estates, described it as unbearable. Others spoke of the perfume of the people. You're inclined to agree with the former, at least until your nose goes numb, which mercifully happens around midday. But it's not just the stink. It's the layering of scents, garum and sweat, incense and horse dung, roasted chestnuts, and something you really hope is wine. You breathe shallowly, a mistake that only concentrates it. And yet somehow everyone around you seems utterly unbothered. A woman carrying a jug of something yellow, please don't ask, smiles and offers you a fig. A musician plays a pan flute off-key, with intense emotional commitment. A man nearby dips his sandals in the fountain and nods to you, as if this is perfectly normal behavior. It is. A pottery seller waves you over and starts talking prices before you even speak. You try to explain you're just browsing, but he already thinks you're insulting his grandmother. You back away, bowing slightly. He throws a shard at your feet and curses your descendants. You accept this. You need a break. You duck into what looks like a quieter side street. Fewer people, more shade. A welcome change. Or so you think. That's when the first chamber pot flies past your head. You hear it before you see it. A shout from an upper window followed by a wet thud a few feet behind you. You turn to see a cracked pot, leaking something very not water onto the stones. A man above grins down. "Next time I'll aim better," he shouts cheerfully. Roman apartments or insulae were notorious for their vertical sprawl and questionable plumbing. People lived on top of each other literally, and emptied their waste by flinging it out the window. No warning, just gravity and luck. The lower your floor, the higher your rent. Why? Because dodging airborne urine every morning gets old. You press yourself against the wall and tiptoe along like a sneaky side character in a play. A second pot crashes near a cart of peaches. The vendor doesn't flinch. You envy his composure. At this point, you're starting to understand why most Romans wore simple clothes. Anything elaborate would just be more fabric to get soaked. You finally escape the splash zone and reach a broader avenue where the crowd thickens again. The forum is nearby, you can feel it. The shouting intensifies. A parade of officials in pristine white togas storms past, surrounded by guards and sycophants. One man trips on his hem and is immediately ignored by everyone, including his own entourage. You help him up. He mutters thanks, then accuses you of touching a senator without permission. You step back quickly. In the distance, a small scuffle breaks out between two orators competing for attention. One waves a scroll, the other, a dead chicken. The chicken wins. The crowd moves with him. You're shoved forward by the human tide, bumping into a young woman with a basket of eggs. They tumble. You try to help. She slaps your arm and calls you clumsy Greek. You mumble something in your defense, but are already being swept away again by a gang of rowdy teenagers in poorly fitted tunics chanting about wine. And still the sounds and smells mount. A trumpet blares from nowhere. A donkey brays. A man coughs up something heroic. You spot a small fountain guarded by two geese. You approach cautiously. The geese honk. Loudly. You back away, apologizing like they're mob enforcers. Eventually you find yourself in a shaded alcove, breathing heavily. For the first time all day, there's a pocket of calm. A woman nearby is humming as she peels fruit. A cat slinks past, eyeing you with disdain. You close your eyes, and immediately someone steps on your foot. You open them to find a child picking your pocket. You catch his wrist gently. He grins, shrugs, and says, "Worth a try." You let him go. Rome is like that. Loud, smelly, violent, hilarious, tragic, alive, and you. You're still standing. Somehow. You don't know exactly when it happens, but at some point, somewhere between dodging human waste and nearly being mugged by a child, someone mistakes you for a slave. It's not a dramatic declaration. No chains are slapped onto your wrists. There's no auctioneer with a bell shouting your attributes, healthy legs, slightly confused eyes, may know how to write. No, it happens with the quiet inevitability of everything else in Rome. You're leaning against a pillar, catching your breath, when a large man with a scroll and a face like a grumpy statue jabs a thumb toward a cart. "Unload that." You blink. He frowns. "Now." You glance behind you. Surely he's talking to someone else. But no, everyone nearby is already moving on instinct. Another man hands you a sack of onions. It's heavy. You stagger a bit. The man nods approvingly. That's the spirit. You open your mouth to object, but your tongue betrays you. What would you even say? "I'm a time traveler"? Doesn't go over well in a city that thinks eclipses are divine judgment. So you unload the onions. It's not just the onions. There are jugs of olive oil, sacks of grain, a suspiciously wriggling basket you refuse to investigate, and something that smells alarmingly like fermented goat. Your arms ache, your sandals squelch. Your toga is already undone at the shoulder again. The worst part, no one pays you any attention. In a world where social status is everything, you're now invisible. Slavery in ancient Rome was a brutal fact of life. Not racially based like later systems, but wide-reaching and unrelenting. Conquered peoples, abandoned children, bankrupt citizens, many found themselves pressed into lifelong servitude. Some served in households, others on farms, in mines, in bathhouses, in brothels, or under the lash of construction foremen who believed shouting built stronger aqueducts. You've apparently joined the first category, domestic drudgery with a side of bruised onions. A woman nearby hands you a broom. Courtyard's a mess, she mutters before disappearing into a doorway. You sweep. You who once complained when your phone didn't charge properly overnight are now removing pigeon droppings from mosaic tiles with a bunch of twigs tied together with twine. As you work, a small boy approaches. You knew, he asks, tossing a pebble up and down. You nod. He grins. House of Marcus Aurelius Petronius Secundus. He's got 3 wives, 6 kids, and a temper like Vulcan in a thunderstorm. Don't break anything. You glance toward the house, a grand villa with columns and an open atrium. Through the doorway you glimpse painted walls, marble statues, and a bronze dog statue whose eyes seem to follow you. The boy pats your shoulder sympathetically and scurries off. A girl in a faded tunic watches you from the shadows. Don't stand still too long, she whispers. They'll think you're lazy. You nod again. Keep sweeping. Your stomach rumbles. The girl tosses you half a fig from her pouch. You catch it mid-air, eat it in 2 bites, and smile. She doesn't smile back. Don't eat the dates, she warns. They give those to 6 slaves to purge them, duly noted. As the afternoon drags on, the courtyard fills with activity. A matron calls for water. A child wails in the distance. Someone is being flogged somewhere behind the villa wall. Not for drama, just business as usual. You stare at your broom and try not to think too hard. Experts still debate how well or how poorly some Roman slaves lived. Some served in luxurious homes and could one day buy their freedom. Others died before their 20s from overwork or punishment. The law treated them as property. Their stories, when preserved, are heartbreaking and astonishing in equal measure. You're starting to realize that if you truly lived in this time, you wouldn't be a toga-wrapped philosopher or wine-sipping aristocrat. You'd be this. Blisters, sore back, bad bread, uncertain future. You drop the broom and try to leave. Bad idea. The woman returns. Where do you think you're going, she snaps. You shrug. Try a smile. Break. She laughs. Not kindly. The man from earlier appears. What's this loafing? He growls. He grabs your wrist with a grip that says, this conversation won't end with fig cake. You panic. Think fast. Master said. I'm needed at the forum. Urgently. A pause. He frowns. You can almost hear the gears turning in his aqueduct-sized skull. Which master? You squint at him with a conspiratorial expression. The one who really doesn't like being questioned. He lets go. You walk briskly to the gate, then run the moment you're out of sight. The street greets you with its usual chaos. You've escaped for now. You lean against a column and catch your breath, heart thudding. That was too close. You pat yourself down for comfort. Find a date someone stuffed in your pocket during the melee and toss it to a passing dog. The dog winks. Or maybe you're hallucinating. Rome, where losing your identity is easier than losing your sandals. You've barely caught your breath from the slave sweep incident, when the ground beneath your feet trembles, not from an earthquake, but from a stampede of sandals and shouting. You peek around a corner and immediately regret it. There's a food riot forming, or at least something close to one. The grain cart has tipped. It might not sound dramatic, but in a city like Rome, grain is gold. It's not just dinner, it's survival. The Annona Rome's state-subsidized grain dole is a lifeline for hundreds of thousands. Every citizen eligible for their monthly ration treats the grain delivery like modern folks treat Wi-Fi, necessary, sacred, and absolutely panic-inducing when it fails. And today, it has failed. The cart lies on its side like a wounded beast. Sacks split open, a river of barley flowing into the gutter. The crowd swells with noise. Some people are trying to scoop up the grain with their cloaks. Others shout accusations at the driver, at the gods, at a suspicious-looking goose who may or may not have been involved. You're swept up in the fringe of the chaos, shoved this way and that as citizens argue, brawl and barter for what little they can grab. A woman grabs your arm and hisses. He's hoarding grain under his stall. You don't know who he is, but suddenly everyone else is charging in that direction. Rome, you're learning, is a city on edge. always one bad day from total combustion. Bread riots were a regular feature of Roman life, especially when the grain shipments from Egypt were late lost or hijacked. While emperors bragged about feeding the people, the reality was a logistical nightmare. Droughts, pirates, price speculation, it all meant that one missed shipment could mean weeks of unrest. You duck into a doorway to avoid a thrown onion. It hits a statue of Minerva. Someone gasps. You hope the goddess isn't the vengeful type. Suddenly soldiers arrive. Not your average guards either. These are urban cohorts, Rome's version of riot police minus the restraint. Armed with short swords and even shorter tempers, they wade into the crowd with the authority of men who've had enough of everyone. Disperse, or lose your teeth, one bellows. A man next to you grumbles. We don't even have teeth anymore, and disappears into the smoke. You retreat down a side alley, ducking under laundry and over puddles that you sincerely hope are just water. You need air. You need silence. But Rome offers neither. As you emerge into another forum, you find yourself face to face with a statue of Augustus, his marble finger eternally pointed towards some moral ideal. Behind him, citizens argue about tax relief. In front of him, a child urinates casually. Rome in a nutshell. You notice a long line of people snaking around a nearby columned building. Curious, you approach. It's a bread line, a literal line of citizens waiting for their monthly grain ration, what remains of it. You take your place, hoping maybe, just maybe, you'll receive something edible that isn't attached to a fight. The man in front of you is missing a sandal. The woman behind you has an iguana in a basket and keeps whispering to it. You stand quietly. Hours pass. Or maybe it's just minutes in Roman time, which moves at the pace of bureaucracy. Eventually you reach the front. A bored official stares at you. Name, he asks. You freeze. Marcus? Tunicus. It's the first thing that pops into your head. He squints. District, you panic. Forum South, no wait. Forum North. He glares. You don't even know your district. I just moved, you say weakly. Very recent relocation. The official sighs and throws a small sack at your chest. It thuds against you like a pillow filled with pebbles. Barley, possibly with weevils. Next, he yells. You scurry away, clutching your prize. Behind you, someone starts shouting about unfair distribution. Someone else throws a date. A soldier shouts back. Another riot brews. You keep walking. The sack is heavier than it looks. You shift it from one arm to the other, imagining how many meals it might make. Assuming you knew how to cook barley. Assuming you had a kitchen. Assuming someone didn't mug you for it by sunset. Which, by the way, is coming fast. The sky turns the color of rust. Torches begin to flicker in doorways. Smoke coils above rooftops. Not always from cooking fires. You pass two men arguing about a chicken, three children chasing a man dressed as Mercury, and a cart full of very nervous-looking cats. It hits you then. Rome isn't just physically exhausting, it's emotionally exhausting. It's like living inside a beehive that's also a debating society and occasionally on fire. You stop at a fountain, splash your face, and catch your reflection in the water. You look wild, dirty, tired. Somehow both older and younger. You whisper to yourself, "You're doing great." The geese from earlier appear. You flee. You stumble into the forum proper, just as dusk begins its slow descent. The sun softens finally, less like an angry god, and more like a warm coin slipping behind the rooftops. You think you might be able to catch your breath now, just a few moments of peace, maybe a nice stone bench, perhaps even a passing dog who doesn't demand tribute. Instead, you find yourself in the middle of what can only be described as ancient Rome's version of Twitter. The public forum, where absolutely everyone is talking all at once, and no one is listening. To your left, a philosopher in a threadbare toga gestures furiously with a scroll. Truth is found only through suffering, he shouts. To your right, a merchant selling perfume counters. Truth is found in good fragrance and strong sales. A senator walks past with two attendants and an air of having never once had to carry his own tunic. Someone heckles him about taxes. He ignores it. Someone else throws a date at his sandal. He kicks it aside with emotion so rehearsed it might as well be policy. You inch forward, trying not to look too lost, too foreign or too flammable. Your earlier barley prize is tied up in a bundle at your side. You cradle it like a small, fragile child. It's your one victory today. The crowd thickens as you approach the rostra, the speaker's platform. There a man is performing rhetorical acrobatics that would make a lawyer blush. He's accusing a rival of moral decay, bad poetry, and excessive garlic consumption. The crowd roars. Someone yells, "He stinks worse than the latrine at Ostia." A passing woman chuckles. "It's true," she whispers. "He does." The speaker waves a hand dramatically. Is this what the Republic has become? A haven for garlic breath and loose morals? The crowd explodes in half-serious outrage, and you're jostled backwards into a group of rowdy students who seem more interested in comparing belt knots than engaging with the political moment. You try to slip away, but a toga-clad man grabs your arm. "Citizen, have you signed the petition? Petition to ban foreign lettuce." You blink. "What? Why?" He leans in, whispering, as if revealing a great scandal. "The Spanish ones are too crisp." You sign. Out of fear. He beams. Not far off, a group of men in dusty cloaks debate military matters. Maps are drawn in dirt with sticks. You catch fragments. 3 legions madness. The Gauls won't wait. Did you bring the salted pork? You shuffle past, pretending to be very interested in a nearby statue of a horse missing its tail. You spot someone with a scroll that says, "Free wine tomorrow." You ask him where. He shrugs. "It always says tomorrow." Classic. A boy runs past, carrying a small monkey. No one seems surprised. The monkey is holding a scroll. This is apparently just how Rome functions. Experts still debate the true extent of public participation in Roman politics. While senators held real power and orators ruled the stage, much of the population, especially women, slaves, and the poor, were little more than background noise in the great shouting match of history. You're somewhere in the middle, not silenced, just ignored. A woman in elaborate jewelry hisses at a passerby. "That's not real. Tyrian purple. That's beet juice." The accused gasps in offense and flounces off. Toga wars. You didn't expect to witness toga wars. Eventually, your feet ache too much to stand any longer. You collapse onto a low wall beside a statue of Cicero. Someone has drawn a mustache on him in charcoal. It suits him. A man next to you munches on a fig and gestures lazily toward the chaos. "They say Rome is eternal," he mutters. "But it sure is loud." You nod. He turns to you. "First time in the forum." You nod again. He points at the orator, still ranting about lettuce. "Don't believe a word. Last week he tried to outlaw spoons." You open your mouth to ask why. He waves it off. "Too scoopy," he said. The two of you sit in silence for a rare moment. The city roars around you like an angry kitchen. Then, without warning, the man offers you a sip from his flask. You hesitate. "It's just watered wine," he says. "Not even good wine. But it's better than the stuff they use to clean the mosaics." You sip. It's sour and warm and somehow just right. You thank him. He shrugs and tosses the fig pit over his shoulder. It hits a passing senator. The senator glares. Your companion vanishes. You're alone again. A goat walks past. You no longer question it. You gather your barley and your courage and shuffle away from the forum back into the maze of alleys and archways. You're tired, sticky, and one overly crisp lettuce petition away from snapping. But you made it. Sort of. You hear it before you see it, a steady rhythm of splashing water, slapping sandals, and laughter that echoes across polished marble. The thermae, the public baths, are the beating, steaming, sweaty heart of Roman leisure. And you've been told by no fewer than 3 locals and 1 stray goat that you smell like an amphora left in the sun. So you go. The thermae rise like a temple to body odor and ambition. Towering arches, frescoed walls, colonnades, echoing with the cheerful chaos of half-naked men, arguing about whether boiled cabbage causes melancholy. You hesitate at the threshold. People swarm in and out. Some in full toga, some in half a towel, some with a confidence you'll never know. You shuffle in and are immediately hit by a wall of heat and humidity. It's like stepping into someone's armpit, if that armpit had marble floors and 10 different kinds of incense burning at once. The apoditerium, or changing room, is your first stop. It's less spa and more gladiator locker room. Naked men of all shapes and sizes strut about like they invented anatomy. A burly man with a lopsided beard points to a wooden cubby. You place your bundle of barley inside, eyeing it like a paranoid squirrel. A boy with sharp eyes and suspicious hands offers to guard it for a fee. You decline. He shrugs. You add an extra layer of toga over it anyway. Then the cleaning begins. You're not eased into it. There's no soft jazz, no cucumber water, no eucalyptus-scented robe. Instead, a man with shoulders like boulders and the bedside manner of a tax collector yells, "Oil!" and dumps a thick glob of olive oil directly onto your back. You're spun like dough on a pizza paddle. The strigil curved metal scraper of doom comes out, and your skin is exfoliated with the kind of efficiency usually reserved for battlefield surgeons. It hurts, then it doesn't. Then it itches, then it hurts again. You smile politely and mutter, "Ah, relaxing." He nods, satisfied. Next, you're herded into the tepidarium, the warm room. Steam curls from marble benches. Men lounge, argue about Homer, and slap each other's backs with towels. A philosopher mutters that true wisdom lies in the pause. No one corrects him. You sit awkwardly on the edge of a bench. A man nearby offers you a small cake. For sweat, he says. You nod like that makes sense. Then comes the caldarium, the hot room. It's hot. No, really. It's hot. You step inside and feel your brain begin to poach. The steam clings to you like guilt. You sit on a ledge and instantly regret it. Everything is too smooth, too slick, too warm. Men pour ladles of boiling water over themselves with a grin. You try it. You shriek. They laugh. "New, someone says. You can't even muster a nod. Your ears are sweating. Your kneecaps are sweating. You wonder how anyone relaxes in here, and realize the answer is, they don't. They endure. You stumble out like a boiled fig and are immediately whisked into the frigidarium, the cold plunge pool. It hits you like a slap from Neptune himself. Every cell in your body screams. Then, peace. Stillness. A slow numbness that could be either relaxation or early hypothermia. You float. You forget the barley, the riots, the geese, even the fact that your left sandal has been squeaking for 6 hours. Just cold, blessed water and the echo of splashes. Then, someone cannonballs next to you. A child. Laughing. You sputter and smile. You make your way back to the changing room, skin raw toga, damp hair plastered to your skull like an ancient mosaic. Your barley is still there. Miraculous. You nod at the boy who definitely thought about stealing it. He nods back. Mutual respect. Outside, the air feels different. Cooler. You smell like olive oil and victory. The streets haven't changed, but you have, if only slightly. A man passing by sniffs the air and says, "Ah, just back from the therme." You puff your chest. Yes, smells like garlic. You deflate. Still, you survive the Roman bathhouse. The communal nudity, the scalding water, the aggressive scraping, you took it all like a champion. And honestly, you'd do it again. Well, maybe after a nap. You're finally clean, or at least less offensively human-smelling. The Roman bathhouse has scrubbed off layers of grime dignity and a few ounces of skin. You re-emerge into the open-air toga, fluttering hair dripping, and a new swagger in your step. But of course, Rome isn't about to let you bask in glory for too long. You barely make it half a block before someone grabs your shoulder. "You there," a voice bellows. You freeze. The man is large. Not Roman legionary large, more like wrestles oxen for sport large. He wears an apron stained with mysterious smears and holds what can only be described as an aggressively long stick with a rag tied to the end. "Ever used one of these?" he demands. You blink. "Is that—" "A mop." He laughs, then hands it to you. "Number." "It's a sponge stick. Xylospongium." You stare at it. It's damp. He beams. "Congratulations, you're hired." You look around, wondering if this is another mistaken identity situation. Spoiler, it is. You try to protest. "I think, I'm supposed to be at the Forum." "Perfect," he says. "This job is at the Forum." You are ushered down a narrow alley into a side door of what appears to be a public latrine. The smell hits you before the visuals do, sour, musky, and with strong notes of tragedy. The Roman public toilet, a marvel of engineering, but also of shared horror. Long stone benches, evenly spaced holes and no partitions. Just rows of strangers. Sitting. Doing their business while chatting about politics, the weather, or why Claudia's new haircut is a disaster. You're handed a bucket, a second sponge on a stick, and a brief rundown dip, scrub, rinse, repeat. You want to cry. Public latrines were communal, social, and to modern sensibilities deeply alarming. Romans prided themselves on sanitation and engineering, but their idea of hygiene involved passing around a communal cleaning sponge like it was a loaf of bread at dinner. The water system flowed beneath the benches to keep waste moving, but the odor lingered like an unwanted guest. Your job is simple: keep the sponges in rotation. That means making sure they're rinsed in the channel of running water, re-soaked in vinegar, and ready for the next rear in line. You try not to gag, you fail. Don't let it touch your toga, the man warns. Or your toga becomes his toga. Noted. The chatter around you continues. Two men debate Cicero's stance on justice while relieving themselves. Another man compliments his neighbor's sandals. Someone asks for wine recommendations. It's like a coffee shop, but with more eye contact and fewer beverages. A woman peeks in from the entrance, scowls and mutters, "Men are disgusting." You silently agree. You scrub. You rinse. You pretend this is all a dream. At one point, a rat scurries across the floor. It pauses, looks at you, judging, then disappears into the drainage channel, like it's late for a Senate meeting. An elderly man pats your shoulder. "You're doing good work. The gods see your sponge." You try to smile. He continues. "Back in my day, we cleaned with moss and sand. None of this fancy vinegar nonsense." You nod like that's fascinating. It isn't. Then disaster. A young nobleman storms in, toga billowing, followed by two giggling companions. He's loud, obnoxious, and clearly in search of attention. He grabs a sponge from the bucket, twirls it like a baton, and shouts, "To glory!" It flies from his hand. Lands on your foot. You scream internally. Everyone watches. Silence. Then laughter. Not cruel, just communal. Even the rats might be laughing. The nobleman bows deeply and declares, "Your foot has been blessed." You excuse yourself for a brief moment of existential collapse. Outside, you breathe deeply. Bad idea. You move 2 steps over and try again. The sponge master joins you, clapping you on the back. "You've got talent," he says. "We're short-staffed all week. Same time tomorrow." You mutter something about a prior engagement with Jupiter and back away. As you stagger down the street, you realize you've learned a valuable lesson: there is always a worse job. In Rome, every profession, no matter how grim, was essential. The city's size demanded constant labor, much of it unpleasant. Slaves and freedmen alike kept things moving, cleaning, feeding, and oiling the gears of empire while being largely invisible to history. You pass a man painting signs with crushed beetroot, another selling warm lentils from a pot strapped to his chest, a woman with a monkey trained to steal earrings. Everyone hustles. Everyone works. Everyone watches where they step. Your sponge hand still smells like vinegar. You find a fountain, scrub furiously, and whisper promises to never again accept mysterious sticks from strangers. The sponge, though, the sponge will haunt you forever. You're not even dry from the sponge incident when a crowd swallows you whole again. A sea of voices and bodies carries you down a colonnaded street, straight into what appears to be a religious festival, or possibly an open-air séance featuring poultry. It's hard to tell the difference in Rome. Someone drapes a garland of wilted flowers around your neck. A young girl smears a red paste on your forehead and shouts, "Fortuna be praised." You nod politely and try not to sneeze. You've arrived at a temple plaza during an augury, Rome's favorite way to ask the gods for advice, using bird entrails, divine omens, or the vague direction in which a chicken walks. This is where superstition doesn't just linger, it performs. At the center of it all stands a priest in flowing robes with a gaze that says, "I've stared into the sun too long, and now I speak for Jupiter." He waves a bronze ladle dramatically over a cage of chickens. "Observe," he bellows the sacred birds. "Hesitate. Mars warns us, do not sail today." You blink. You weren't planning to sail, but you still feel oddly judged. Another priest steps forward, holding a scroll and a goose. The scroll contains a prophecy. The goose does not, but it honks with conviction, and that seems to matter. "The goose is displeased," he declares. The crowd murmurs. You try to back away slowly, but someone grabs your hand and says, "Come, they're drawing lots soon. You might get to speak with Apollo." You're pushed into a line, forming in front of what looks like a child's lemonade stand, except instead of lemonade, it's urns filled with fortune sticks. A priestess waves incense over the crowd. Your eyes water instantly. You reach the front. The urn is held up. "Draw," she says. You do. Your stick is blank. The priestess gasps. A mystery omen. She leans in. This means something big is coming. You mumble, like food poisoning. She nods solemnly. Possibly. Religion in Rome was equal parts politics, performance, and paranoia. Gods had specialties: Mars for war, Venus for love, Mercury for petty theft and last-minute excuses. But most citizens didn't worship out of piety. They worshipped to survive. Angry gods made crops fail, or diseases spread, or someone fell into a well. Better to bribe them early. As you make your way out of the crowd, you stumble upon a shrine to Laris, the household gods. Tiny statues, usually tucked in street corners or niches, given offerings like bread crusts or coins. You place a copper in one and whisper, "Please don't let any more poultry touch me." No one laughs. This is normal. Next to the shrine, an old woman sells talismans made of bones, stones, and what you hope is wax. She offers you a discount. For you, good aura. You smile, accept a small amulet, shaped like a foot, and move on. Suddenly, a loud clang draws your attention. A procession marches past musicians banging drums, men in animal masks dancing, someone riding a donkey backward. You're told it's a fertility parade honoring Bacchus. Or maybe it's just Tuesday. One man stumbles up to you, eyes wild. Do you know what's in the Sibylline books? You do not. He winks. Neither do the priests. That's the secret. Then he's gone. You sit on a low step watching the madness unfold. People wave laurel branches. Someone releases a dove that flies directly into a wall. A group of teenagers chant a hymn so badly that the temple dog howls in protest. A scholar next to you snorts. Superstition has replaced philosophy. He holds a scroll titled, "On the Proper Placement of Comets." You inch away. Experts still debate how seriously Romans took their religious rites. Some argue it was ritual for show. Others insist fear of divine punishment ran deep. But one thing is, certain religion touched every part of Roman life, from when to marry, to when to travel, to what color toga to wear to funerals. Speaking of color, a woman grabs your arm and asks if your tunic's shade is blessed. You say yes. She nods and leaves you a fig. You are now apparently holy. The priest from earlier begins a closing chant. The crowd hums along. You try to fake it. A man coughs something that sounds like Latin, and you repeat it with a hopeful smile. He glares. That was a fish. You stay quiet after that. The festival winds down. Candles flicker out. Ash floats in the air. You're dazed, garlanded, and slightly oily from unexpected incense. You walk back through the temple archway, the echo of chants still buzzing in your ears. As you step onto the street, a bird lands on your shoulder. You freeze. The crowd gasps. The priest shouts, "A sign," you say. It's a pigeon, but no one listens. Someone throws petals. A child bows. You have become, for the moment, the chosen of the feathered ones. The bird poops on your tunic. The crowd disperses. You sigh. Rome, where being mistaken for a messenger of the gods is just slightly more common than finding a clean sponge. You decide to put some distance between yourself and the goose-based theology. The smell of incense lingers in your toga, which now bears the unfortunate imprint of pigeon blessing. You shuffle back toward the main road, where you hope desperately to blend in again, maybe as a low-grade olive vendor or someone looking for their lost goat. No such luck. Two soldiers are standing at the intersection. Bronze helmets, square jaws matching expressions of boredom and barely restrained violence. One spots you, squints, and waves you over. Name, he asks. Marcus. Tunicus. Still. Occupation. You glance down at yourself, covered in bird droppings, olive oil, and vague spiritual significance. Messenger. The taller soldier nods to his companion. Perfect. Draft him. You blink. Draft wait. No. But it's too late. You are now officially and irrevocably a soldier in the Roman army. A scroll is slapped into your hand. It smells like mildew and obligation. Report to the castra by sundown, the soldier grunts. 7th Cohort. Auxiliary. Marching out tomorrow. You stare at the scroll. There's a mistake. There's never a mistake, the shorter soldier says, adjusting his helmet. Unless it's with the gods. And they already pooped on you, so. You're nudged forward by a surprisingly firm javelin and find yourself swept into a small group of other draftees. Some anxious, some excited, all equally doomed. A teenage boy clutches a chicken and asks if it can come. No one answers. Another man looks like he just came out of a tavern and still smells like one. The castra, or military camp, looms ahead. It's a squared-off grid of tents, walls, and authority. Guards patrol the edges, their armor gleaming, and their expressions set to professional disappointment. You're herded through the gate like livestock, issued a wooden tablet, and told to stand over there and wait for yelling. The yelling comes promptly. A centurion storms out of a nearby tent, veins bulging sandals, thudding like war drums. "You," he shouts, pointing at the boy with the chicken. "Drop the bird." The boy does not. The chicken is deemed a traitor and escorted off the premises by two amused auxiliaries. The centurion rounds on you, named Marcus Tunicus. He glares. "Is that a real name?" You open your mouth. He cuts you off. "Doesn't matter. From now on you're Boots, because I don't want to learn your name, and your feet look stupid. Welcome to the Roman army." You're assigned to a tent with 7 other men. One snores like he's wrestling a bear. Another insists on sleeping with a dagger under his tongue. You pick the quietest corner and sit down, clutching your barley like a child hugging a stuffed animal. The tent smells like leather sweat and quiet despair. A veteran beside you grins. First time you nod. He slaps your back. You'll hate it. Everyone does. But the food's not terrible. He pauses. Except the porridge. The porridge will make you question Jupiter. The rest of the evening is a blur. You're handed a practice sword made of wood, told to swing it like you mean it, and then mocked when you nearly decapitate a nearby helmet rack. Dinner is a stew so thin it might actually be tea. You sip-chew something that may be a lentil and try not to think about what marching 20 miles tomorrow will do to your ankles. A priest stops by to bless the cohort. He waves a burning sprig of laurel and mutters something about valor, strength, and not dying in a ditch. Everyone cheers. You clap quietly. Night falls fast. A trumpet sounds somewhere. Men shuffle into bedrolls. One loudly declares he's going to dream of Venus. Another prays to Mars for fewer blisters. You lie awake, staring at the tent ceiling. The faint glow of firelight flickering through the canvas. Somewhere outside, a wolf howls. Or maybe it's just a drunk. Scholars still debate how cohesive the average Roman army unit was. Some sources praise their discipline and unity. Others suggest internal brawls, desertions, and morale that depended entirely on how recently someone had gotten paid. You're pretty sure you won't get paid. You weren't even supposed to be here. Eventually your eyes drift shut. Then you're shaken awake. Training starts before dawn, Boots. You groan. Welcome to the Legion. It's still dark when they start yelling. Up, surge rise, like the legions of Ares, or get kicked like a sack of rotten garum. A boot hits the side of your tent. Somewhere outside, someone's already running in full armor. You, however, are tangled in your bedroll like an olive-stuffed burrito. The veteran next to you, whose name is either Publius or possibly just Snorelius Maximus, grunts and sits up stretching with the resigned sigh of a man who knows breakfast will be hard and probably involve yelling. First full day, he mumbles. You'll learn. Learn what exactly? How to collapse from heat stroke while being insulted by a man in a bronze chest plate. You stumble outside into the pre-dawn chill feet, sore from yesterday's chaos, barley sack hidden under your bedroll. You're not risking it. The camp is already alive with the sounds of armor-clanking orders being barked and soldiers frantically trying to remember which strap goes where. You're handed your gear by a supply officer who clearly hates his job and everyone who reminds him of it. Lorica segmentata, he grunts, tossing you a chest plate that weighs approximately as much as betrayal. Helmet, sword, shield, sandals, cloak, water skin. Pretend not to cry. You drop the helmet twice before getting it on your head. It immediately slides forward and bonks your nose. The sword is dull and heavy. The shield is a plank with a handle. The sandals, they are not your size. And you haven't even started marching yet. Soon you're standing in line with the rest of your cohort, arranged in a grid, as strict as a senator's dinner seating. The centurion from yesterday appears now even angrier, like someone insulted his laurel wreath collection. He paces, eyes each of you like you, owe him money, stops in front of you. You, he growls, Boots. You snap to attention. You carry yourself like a scribe with arthritis. You don't know what that means. Today we march. He lets that hang in the air like a thundercloud. 20 Roman miles. in full kit, with full pack. You look down. You are not currently wearing a pack. A nearby soldier throws you one the size of a rebellious toddler. Inside 2 days of rations, salted mystery, a cooking pot dented, a spare tunic smells of goat, and what appears to be a rock. You ask about the rock. For morale, someone says. Then they laugh. The horns sound. The gates open. The cohort moves. And you march. Roman marching is not a casual stroll through the countryside. It is a high-stakes waddle, powered by discipline, dehydration, and sarcasm. The sandals, caligay, are designed to let air through, and stones, and heat, and regret. Every step feels like it's being judged by Mars himself. Pick up your knees, the centurion shouts. You walk like Neptune's drunk uncle. You try. You fail. Your pack slaps your back like a passive-aggressive donkey. After 1 hour, you're sweating. After 2, you're delirious. After 3, you can no longer feel your toes. A small child herding sheep watches your cohort pass and points at you. That one's not going to make it, he says. His sheep nod solemnly. You trip on a root. Your helmet slips sideways. A man behind you hands it back on instinct. Happens to all of us, he says, not unkindly. Experts still debate the average speed and stamina of a Roman march. Some claim up to 20 miles a day, even over rough terrain. Others argue soldiers routinely collapsed, had to be carried, or creatively faked injuries to rest. You begin plotting how you might do the same, with a convincingly dislocated shoulder. By midday, the sun is high. The dust is everywhere. You've inhaled so much sand you're worried you'll start sneezing amphorae. The centurion calls for a break. You collapse like a dropped tunic. Your feet are 2 angry slabs of meat. You sip from your water skin, it tastes like leather and sadness. A soldier nearby, Marcus Somthingius, leans over and offers you a chunk of bread. It's hard enough to chip a tooth, but you accept it with gratitude. He squints at your pale, sweaty face. Not from around here, are you? You consider telling him the truth that you're from 2000 years in the future, that you don't belong here, that you once paid $7 for a coffee and considered that normal. Instead you say, "Number new to Rome." He nods. "We all were once." Then he bites into the bread and cracks a molar. The afternoon stretches worse. The air turns thick. Your back aches. You hallucinate a statue of Mercury offering you a massage. You nearly weep. Eventually, a signal sounds stop. You stumble into formation. The centurion strides down the line, nodding. "No casualties," he mutters. Disappointing. You pitch your tent slowly, clumsily, under the disapproving gaze of a veteran who's set his up blindfolded and upside down just to make a point. Night falls. Fires flicker. Someone plays a flute badly. You eat more salted meat, then lie down on a bedroll filled with more rocks than straw. And you dream of socks. Just socks. You wake up sore in places you didn't know existed. Your shoulders ache, your knees creak like a wooden door left out in the rain, and your back feels like it's been used to pave a road. The ground, despite being technically dirt, has somehow achieved the density of marble, and you're expected to march again today. You shuffle to the campfire like a wounded duck. The morning stew is already bubbling. It smells vaguely of barley ash and disappointment. A soldier hands you a bowl. You drink it more as a survival ritual than a meal. Today's mission, back to Rome. Because of course the army never actually does anything simple. Yesterday's 20-mile hike into the middle of nowhere was purely for discipline. Today's 20-mile return, cohesion. You suspect this is Roman, for we're all going to suffer, so let's do it together. You pack up your tent with the elegance of a startled goat strap on your sandals, now more twine than leather, and hoist your pack. It's heavier. Someone might have added a brick, possibly for morale. And then you march. Again. This time, however, you're starting to understand the rhythm. It's a strange kind of trance. Left, right, step, shift, curse, repeat. Your feet throb in time with the drumbeat echoing from the front of the column. A man to your left starts singing a marching tune. It's crude. It involves a centurion, a sheep, and a very disappointed Saturn. You hum along. By midday your legs are numb. Your brain is a misty fog of heat and dust. The only clear thought is that you would give anything for a pair of modern sneakers and a cold bottle of Gatorade. You pass a stretch of road flanked by milestones. Ancient Roman roads, straight, unforgiving. and hard enough to file your teeth down if you fall on them. These roads are a marvel of engineering, and a curse for your arches. You pause at one stone and lean against it. A soldier jokes. Careful, lean too long, and you'll become part of the structure. He's only half kidding. A cart rumbles past, carrying supplies, grain, wine, and several bound scrolls that one soldier swears are full of state secrets, but probably contain birthday lists. The sun climbs higher. Your tunic sticks to your back. Your armor clinks with every step like an annoying percussion section. Then you see it. Rome. Still distant, shimmering in the heat like a mirage, but unmistakable, the domes, the columns, the rising marble that says we conquered the known world, and also invented aqueducts. You can almost smell the city, olive oil sweat and mild civic unrest. But before you can enjoy the view, the centurion orders the unit to double time. Your legs groan, your soul sighs, and yet you run. Sort of. It's more of a shuffle hop. You arrive at the gates panting, covered in dust, and with the faint taste of copper in your mouth. One of your fellow soldiers actually kisses the cobblestones. No one judges him. You're dismissed with a grunt. Same time next week, the centurion mutters. You drag yourself toward the nearest fountain and dunk your head into the water. A bystander frowns. That's for drinking. You reply. Not anymore. Roman soldiers were expected to be constantly prepared, physically trained and mentally sharp. You, on the other hand, have just hallucinated a fig tree, offering you a back massage. Scholars still debate the daily conditions of Roman soldiers. Some portray them as elite professionals, others as walking blisters in uniform. You lean against a column and slowly peel off your sandals. Your feet look like they've aged several decades. You whisper a quiet apology to them. They don't respond. A local baker offers you a piece of bread as a thank you for your service gesture. It's stale, but your tears soften it. You head toward the Subura district, where the buildings lean in two close laundry sags above your head, and someone is always shouting about moldy vegetables. It's chaotic. It's smelly. It's home if home were a festival of grime and goat hooves. You stop at a tavern with a cracked sign that reads Bacchus and beans. You flop onto a stool and order the cheapest wine. It tastes like raisins got in a fight with vinegar and lost. A bard strums a lyre nearby and sings about a soldier who got lost in Gaul and married a tree. No one questions it. You tip him a single copper. He winks. You look like the tree. You laugh too hard. Possibly because you're dehydrated. You finally return to your borrowed room aloft above a spice shop where the smell of cumin haunts your dreams. You collapse on the straw mat, remove your armor with the desperation of a man escaping a straitjacket, and finally lie down. Your legs twitch like they're still marching. Your back spasms. Your hair smells like donkey. But you're home. For now, you wake up sore, itchy, and still dressed in Roman undergarments that feel like they were woven from the regrets of angry sheep. The room spins slightly, not from wine, but from sheer exhaustion. The cushion beneath you has flattened into something more conceptual than supportive. Outside Rome stirs coughs and resumes its eternal shouting. You sit up. Your joints make sounds like pottery cracking in the sun. You hobble downstairs to the spice shop's entryway. The owner, a perpetually frowning man who smells like fennel and dust, glares at you. You snored like Neptune himself, he mutters. Go walk it off. You're frightening the cardamom. You do just that. Today you decide you'll take it easy. No sponge sticks, no draft notices, just a calm walk through the city. You're wrong, of course. You decide to follow one of the famed Roman roads out of the inner city for a short stroll, just a light leg stretch. Perhaps the Appian Way. You've heard tourists centuries in the future call it iconic. They didn't mention the jolts. The road, like all Roman roads, is technically amazing. Stone laid in tight, purposeful layers, sloped for drainage, durable as ambition. But comfort, not part of the engineering. Every step you take is met with a thud-thud slap, as the soles of your sandals repeatedly fail to absorb the shocks from uneven flagstones. Roman roads are marvels if you're a cart. For human feet especially, those already chewed up by army drills, they're just a long, hot punishment. The sun beats down. You sweat instantly. You pass a group of slaves hauling amphorae. One slips, drops his jar, and gets smacked with a stick by a red-faced overseer. You flinch. No one else does. You pass a group of merchants arguing over transportation fees. One claims his cart hit a pothole and shattered 3 urns. The others accuse him of fraud. One brings out a goat as a witness. The goat eats a map. You try to walk around the argument, but another merchant intercepts you. Hey, you look like someone who knows a shortcut to Ostia. You say nope, he doesn't care. He shoves a parcel into your arms. Deliver this. You stand there, confused, holding a burlap sack that squelches slightly. He's already vanished. So now you're an unpaid delivery boy. You glance inside the sack. You immediately regret it. Something in there is moving. You decide not to name it. You keep walking, bumping along the road like a confused beetle trying not to trip on the uneven paving. A man shouts from a rooftop that Mercury favors left-footed travel. You switch feet. Nothing improves. The famous Roman cursus publicus, or imperial postal service, may be centuries beyond your current pay grade, but you've apparently become its sweaty, confused cousin. You try to find someone who looks like they might be expecting a slimy parcel. No luck. A donkey looks interested but then loses interest. Typical. A cart rattles by splashing your toga with something warm and suspiciously beige. You sigh and shuffle on. You pass a milestone carved with the name of a long-dead consul who once proposed mandatory beard oil for senators. You admire the ambition. A soldier nearby scoffs. Those roads look pretty, but try marching across them for 3 months. Your knees will pack up and go back to Sicily. You nod. Empathy has replaced your ability to complain. An old man selling roasted chickpeas offers you a handful for free. You accept. They're crunchy, salty, and distract you from the fact that your tunic is sticking to places it has no business touching. Then it happens. You stub your toe. Hard. The pain explodes up your leg through your spine and directly into the memory center of your brain where it begins carving itself into history. The stone that did it lies there smug and unbothered as though it's offended. You dared walk on it at all. You limp to the side of the road and sit beneath a dusty cypress tree. Your foot throbs, your back aches. You swear the parcel wriggled and sighed. You glance around. The countryside opens up slightly. Hills roll lazily toward the horizon. Birds chirp. Somewhere a man plays a flute. For a moment it's peaceful. Then the parcel explodes. Not explodes in the dramatic sense, more in the suddenly opens to reveal 3 very angry, very sticky ferret scents. They leap out. One bites your sandal. One climbs your arm. One vanishes into a nearby olive grove, leaving only a trail of squeaks and existential crisis. You sit there, stunned. The original merchant is nowhere to be found. The ferrets are gone. Your left sandal now has ventilation. Rome's roads may lead everywhere, but today they've led you straight into a ferret ambush. You get up slowly, limping now. Not metaphorically, truly limping. As you walk back toward the city, you glance at the road beneath your feet. So smooth in parts, so treacherous in others. You understand now this wasn't a city built for ease, it was built for endurance. And ferrets. Back inside the city gates, limping and vaguely ferret-scented you, barely make it a dozen paces before trouble finds you again. This time it's the taxman. He spots you from across the street. His toga dyed, an officious shade of beige scrolls tucked under his arm, and a smile so forced it might qualify as a weapon. He beelines for you, like an eager librarian, with a personal vendetta. You there, he says. You freeze, still holding one of your sandals which the ferret refused to return. Name Marcus Tunicus, you say, defeated. He narrows his eyes. That sounds made up. It is you, admit. He nods. Excellent. Let's assess your dues. You blink. My Watty unrolls a scroll, licks the end of a stylus, and begins scribbling with alarming speed. You appear able-bodied. That's a head tax. You've walked on city roads. Maintenance fee. You've entered through the gate toll. Are you in possession of any livestock? No, you say a little too quickly. He gestures at your barley sack, still miraculously intact. That counts as taxable agricultural produce. It's mine, which makes it taxable personal property. Do you own any goats, pigs, or particularly entrepreneurial chickens, number? Would you like one? No. He scribbles faster. Then he sniffs the air. That's vinegar. Have you been near a sponge bath latrine? You groan. That's a sanitation hazard citation. You look around for help, but passers-by only shake their heads and whisper. First time a cart clatters by loaded with amphorae. The taxman watches it longingly, then returns to you. Look, you say. I have no money. He pauses. No denarii, no sesterces. Not even a scruffy old obol. You shake your head. He sighs. Very well. Barter tax applies. He pulls a smaller scroll from within his toga, the unwilling peasant list. Let's see. You can pay your dues by offering labor grain or entertainment. You're about to protest when a voice calls from behind you. Ah, there you are. A portly man in a velvet-trimmed toga appears flanked by two assistants holding tiny dogs. He smells of rosewater and unearned confidence. He gestures at you as if claiming a prize. This is my new house servant, he announces. The taxman looks skeptical. Does he have a permit? I'm very wealthy, the man says. Do you need a permit to breathe? The taxman sighs, scribbles something, and walks away muttering about aristocrats and goat loopholes. You're whisked away before you can argue. The portly man pats your shoulder. You looked overwhelmed. I find it refreshing. Most people lie to tax officials. You just froze like a duck at the Saturnalia parade. You thank him. He grins. Name's Plinius. He hands you one of the dogs. It glares at you. Back at his home, less villa, more chaos palace, you're fed honeyed wine, a fig the size of your fist, and half a lecture on why olives are the true soul of Rome. You nod throughout. His home is cluttered with scrolls, cushions, busts of men. He claims are all named Gaius, and one half-stuffed eagle that he insists was struck by lightning and granted to him by Mars. Your job. For now it's standing around looking grateful, occasionally nodding when he pontificates about the Senate's socks he's against them, or the moral dangers of underseasoned lentils. It beats scrubbing latrine sponges. For now, Plinius hands you a stylus. Write a note for me to the Cheese Guild. Tell them the mould was just right. They'll know what it means. You write, the mould was just right. He claps. You're a natural. Turns out many wealthy Romans had scribes and servants who wrote their correspondence, especially if they were too busy arguing with furniture or too lazy to lift a stylus. Scholars remain divided on how literate the average citizen was, though most agree that the upper crust liked to appear busier than they actually were. You're fed dinner dormice, stuffed with herbs, cheese curds, soaked in honey, and a soup that you swear winked at you. Afterward, Plinius insists on reading poetry aloud from his private collection. It involves love stars and a lengthy metaphor about cucumbers. You applaud politely. Then he falls asleep, mid-sonnet. You tiptoe out with a borrowed roll and a handful of olives. Back on the street full of strange food and mild social trauma, you exhale. You survived the taxman. Barely. You even made a new friend. Sort of. And now you know, in Rome, money isn't the only currency. There's also timing, luck, and the ability to nod convincingly at a man discussing cheese mould. You don't make it far after leaving Plinius's villa before fate once again decides to spice things up. You're humming a slightly off-key version of the poem about cucumbers. Don't ask why it's stuck now when two men grab you by the elbows. Good evening, citizen, one says, with a smile that contains no joy. You've been summoned. Summoned you repeat. To court, the other replies. For blasphemy. You blink. I think there's been... A fig fell from your toga yesterday, the first man says grimly, and landed near the temple of Vesta. A child ate it and claimed to see Jupiter. You stare at him. That's not blasphemy. He shrugs. The augur disagreed. And so you're marched, gently but firmly, through winding alleys until you reach a small, crooked building pretending to be a court of law. It leans slightly like it's had a few too many amphorae of wine. Inside, a judge snoozes behind a cracked marble desk, and a scribe doodles gladiators in the margins of a scroll. Blasphemy trial, one of the men announces. The judge opens one eye, frowns and grumbles. Who's representing him? I'll do it, says a voice from the doorway. You turn. It's a mime, a literal mime, dressed in grey robes, face powdered, pale eyes outlined in kohl. He bows to you silently, then turns to the judge and begins miming your defense. He mimes a fig falling. He mimes surprise. He mimes divine light, a sneeze, and someone crying tears of joy. He ends by miming an eagle landing gently on your shoulder. The judge blinks slowly. So, divine accident, he says. The mime nods solemnly. The judge nods back. Acceptable. Case dismissed. The child in question is present and eating another fig. He declares he now hears the voice of Neptune telling him to avoid lentils. Everyone applauds. You are given a small scroll stating you are cleared of celestial misconduct. You You tuck it into your belt, unsure whether to laugh or run. Roman justice, as it turns out, is less about evidence and more about theatre and snacks. Experts still debate the consistency of Roman courts. While some legal codes were detailed and sophisticated, especially for matters of property and inheritance, lower-level cases often involved hearsay, bribery, social connections, and apparently interpretive mime defense. As you exit the courthouse, a man approaches. "Heard you beat a blasphemy charge," he says. You nod slowly. "Excellent. I'm putting on a play about Jupiter's haircut and need someone with divine immunity. Interested you walk faster?" He follows. "We've got goots. Real ones. The audience loves goats, you run. You duck into a narrow alley, stepping over a sleeping man and two awake chickens. You emerge near the forum again, where life carries on in its usual crescendo of chaos. Two men argue about a debt involving a fish. One woman sings a lullaby to a statue of Venus. A politician stands on a plinth declaring Rome must return to tradition while wearing purple shoes and a peacock feather cape. You try to blend into a crowd near the law court steps, but of course you're recognized. Hey, it's the fig prophet. Someone hands you a basket of fruit. Someone else asks if you'll bless their goat. You shake your head, mutter something about sore feet, and escape into the shade of a colonnade. There, a young woman with ink-stained fingers is copying legal codes onto a wax tablet. She glances up. Blasphemy court. You nod. First time you nod again. She hands you a small cake. Happens to everyone eventually. The cake is sweet, nutty, and blessedly does not talk. You sit beside her and watch as the forum continues to swirl with orators, hawkers, criers, lovers, liars, and one very confused man trying to convince a statue of Apollo to invest in his soap business. You've learned a valuable lesson in Rome. Justice is more about who's watching than what's true. Also, if anything falls near a temple, pretend you meant to do it. As you leave the square, someone whispers, "That's the one who angered the gods." Someone else replies, No, he communed with them." You shrug. Let them wonder. You make it 2 blocks from the forum before Rome tosses you back into the fire, this time quite literally. There's shouting ahead. You round a corner just in time to see a toga-clad man being wrestled to the ground by 2 guards. He's holding a small vial and screaming, "It's just purple." The crowd gasps. You blink. Purple, then someone grabs your arm. Don't stare. He's lucky they didn't throw him to the crocodiles. You whisper, "Was it poison?" "No," the man replies grimly. "It was Tyrian dye." You blink again. "Purple dye," you repeat, unsure if you heard correctly or just hallucinated again. "Yes," he whispers. "Only for emperors." That man wore a purple stripe on his tunic. Illegally. You watch as the offender is dragged away, wailing about personal expression and misunderstood fashion choices. And that's when it hits you, this place takes colour very, very seriously. You check your own tunic. It's an unfortunate shade of beet-stained beige, now unlikely to enrage any emperors. Still, you decide to lay low, at least until you're sure no one's enforcing new laws against, say, looking tired in public. But things go from absurd to alarming quickly. You hear a sudden rhythmic chant. A group of helmeted men stomps past in formation, banging their shields and shouting, "No more tax on wine," followed by, "Unless it's Greek." A cluster of spectators cheer. Some boo. One throws a cheese wheel. This is not a protest. This is a parade. Or maybe a protest disguised as a parade. Either way, it's gaining momentum. A platform is wheeled out from an alley. A man in a lion mask jumps onto it and roars, then recites a poem about betrayal in iambic pentameter. The crowd goes wild. Just as you're starting to enjoy the theatrical mayhem, the guards return, dragging more people this time, 2 youths covered in paint and feathers. Apparently they were caught painting fake blessing scrolls and selling them to tourists. One of them yells, "Art is its own blessing." The crowd applauds. The guards look exhausted. Then someone spots you. "Hey, you're the fig prophet." Before you can deny it, a woman shouts, "Let him speak." The crowd parts. You're pushed onto the platform. Someone hands you a lyre. It has 2 strings and smells like fish. You stare into the crowd wide-eyed. Someone tosses you a fig. You catch it. The crowd cheers again. "Now what?" You clear your throat. "Rome," you say slowly, channeling the sheer absurdity of your day, "is very loud." There's a long pause. Then, someone in the back yells, "Truth!" The crowd erupts. You're a hit. You quickly invent more lines. The gods are watching, the geese are judging. Beware purple tunics and never trust a mime. Every line is met with cheers, whistles, or a bread crust thrown in approval. A man weeps into his wine. A senator jots down your speech for possible future inspiration. You exit the platform like a victorious wrestler. Someone hands you a cup of warm wine. You drink it. It's terrible. Before you can leave, the guards return again. One of them sighs. Public disturbance. You raise your hands. "I didn't start it." He nods. "No, but you finished it. That's worse." They drag you toward a holding cell. You protest. They ignore you. Then a voice calls out, "Release him. That's my entertainer. It's Plinius." Again. He looks delighted. "Fig prophet and street performer, I must introduce you to my cousin Livia." She adores strange men who upset public order. You're released into his custody. Again. Like a particularly scruffy puppy. As you walk with him back toward his villa, and a hot meal, hopefully without feathers, he chatters on, "Did you see the goat-based dance troupe? Terrible rhythm, excellent costumes. Also, what are your thoughts on adding a prophetic monologue to dinner parties?" You groan. Rome isn't just chaotic, it's theatrical. Laws are enforced with flair, trials are performances, speech is a sport, and sometimes fashion crimes are punished more harshly than theft. Scholars still debate whether Rome's public life was satire serious or something in between. But you now know the truth in this city. Anything can be a spectacle, including you. Back at Plinius's villa, you collapse onto a cushion that smells vaguely of cinnamon and spilled vinegar. You're handed a pastry. You don't ask what's inside. And as you drift off to sleep, your last thought is simple, clear, and entirely accurate. You're going to need a new tunic. You wake up to the soft hum of voices outside the villa, the gentle clink of amphorae, and the sharp yap of one of Plinius's lapdogs threatening a passing cart. You feel almost rested. Your bones still creak like a neglected temple door, and there's a fig pit stuck to your shoulder, but by Roman standards, you're thriving. Plinius bursts into your room in a swirl of scented fabric. "Good news," he declares. "We're going to the Colosseum." You sit up. "Is this a social event?" "Better," he says. "Civic entertainment." You try to protest, mention the need for recovery, foot blisters, emotional healing from mime lawyering. But he's already dragging you outside with the energy of a man who hasn't had to wait in a line since Julius. Caesar was alive. The streets hum with anticipation. Everyone's headed in one direction, buzzing about the day's events. Bread has been distributed, wine is flowing, and Rome's favorite question is on every tongue. "Who's fighting today?" You ask Plinius. He shrugs. "Something special. Imported animals. Criminals. Possibly an ex-magistrate disguised as a minotaur. Hard to say." You reach the Colosseum and stare up at its towering arches already teeming with spectators. The place is massive. Rome's answer to what if we built a monument to bloodshed that could also seat an entire city. Inside, it's a churning sea of bodies. People push elbow and squeeze into their marble seats with a level of excitement usually reserved for weddings or small-scale rebellions. You and Plinius are ushered to the Minianum Secundum, the section reserved for Rome's semi-important, not quite senatorial middle class. From your perch, the arena stretches below like a golden bowl sand swept and raked trapdoors hidden beneath its pristine surface. The smell is overwhelming. Hot stone-roasted nuts, spiced wine, and beneath it all, the faint iron tang of what's to come. A trumpet sounds. The crowd roars. You flinch. Down in the arena the gates open. Out come a group of men in mismatched armor, some with real swords, some with wooden training blades. They're gladiators in the loosest sense. Untrained criminals, unlucky debtors, a man who probably just parked his cart in the wrong spot on the wrong day. Opening act, Plinius murmurs. They warm up the sand. What follows is chaos. Clumsy fight screams one man running in circles until he's tackled by a surprisingly agile butcher wielding a net. The crowd cheers not for skill but for spectacle. You feel ill. Then come the animals. Out of the shadowed gate lumbers a bear. Behind it, a handler waving a torch and shouting something about divine justice and imported fur. The bear swats the torch away and climbs a ladder. The audience goes silent. It sits at the top like a fuzzy emperor. Training accident, Plinius whispers. Next, lions. Emaciated, irritable, and very interested in a goat tied to a post at center stage. The goat seems unconcerned. The lion's confused. One of the lions lies down. The goat nibbles its ear. The crowd boos. A gladiator is sent in to encourage excitement. He ends up chased by both animals and escapes through a side gate, dropping his helmet in panic. The announcer tries to salvage the moment. A triumph of harmony, he yells. Then comes the real match. Two well-armored gladiators stride out, one tall and muscular, the other short but lightning quick. The crowd hushes. The clash is immediate, metal on metal, sand flying, spectators gasping. It's brutal and beautiful and terrible. The tall one stumbles. The short one presses the attack. Then reversal. A trip. A fall. Sword at the throat. The crowd goes quiet. Thumbs rise. Some up. Some down. You glance at Plinius. He shrugs. They'll spare him. He fought well. They don't. Blood stains the sand. A man near you weeps into his figs. Another laughs so hard he spills wine on his tunic. Someone starts a betting pool on whether the next fight involves flaming goats. You feel nothing. Or rather, you feel everything. Disgust, shock, awe, a strange respect for the athleticism, a desperate longing for a warm bath and a soft blanket, and a century without public executions as entertainment. Scholars remain divided on how frequently gladiators actually died. Some say many fights were rehearsed. Others claim high mortality was the main draw. But everyone agrees. Rome loved a show. The next bout begins with fanfare, trumpets, and a man dressed as a mythological sea monster being chased by two shirtless archers in gold paint. You don't ask. You excuse yourself. Plinius barely notices. Bring back chestnuts if you go near the vendor. Outside the arena, it's quiet. Or maybe your ears are still ringing. You sit on a step in the shade, shaking. A boy runs past wearing a cardboard helmet and swinging a stick, shouting, "I am Mars," you exhale. The Colosseum, you realize, is Rome, in miniature power, beauty, cruelty, showmanship, and a goat doing something confusing in the corner. You're not sure what unsettles you more, the violence, or how quickly you got used to watching it. You don't remember how you got back to the street. One moment, you were watching a lion stare confusedly at a goat. The next, you were blinking in the Roman sun again, feet automatically moving, brain somewhere between shock and sensory overload. The Colosseum lingers behind you, a great stone theatre of sweat, blood, and very enthusiastic popcorn salesmen. Without the popcorn, you feel unwell, not physically. No, your body has somehow survived marching, sweating, sandals, and sponge work. It's your spirit that's limping. You need help, or at least some semblance of care, medicine, comfort, possibly divine intervention. So you ask around. Two passers-by argue over which doctor is better, the one with the sharp knives or the one who yells at your spleen. A third recommends a woman who rubs garlic on your temples and chants about Saturn. You try not to panic. Eventually, someone points you to a medicus just off the Subura district. You hobble there and arrive at what appears to be a home, a shop, and an alchemy lab all in one. A painted sign outside reads, "Doctor, Quintus Leech's advice and reasonable fees." You knock. The door opens. Smoke wafts out. A chicken crosses your path. You don't ask why. Inside, a man with a stained tunic and wild eyebrows greets you. "I'm Doctor Quintus," he says, already reaching for a jar filled with what appears to be pickled ears. "What seems to be the trouble?" "Existential collapse, you offer." He nods like, "That's common. I've got just the thing." You're ushered onto a wobbly wooden couch. He presses your temples, listens to your back taps, your kneecaps, then sniffs you. He mutters. "Very complex." You nod. He disappears into a back room. You hear banging, boiling, and at one point screaming, unclear if it's the doctor or something he dropped. He returns holding a steaming cup and a stick with a leech dangling from it. "What's that?" you ask. "This," he says proudly, "is a boiled blend of vinegar, honey, basil, and fear. The leech is extra. I'll skip the leech. Your loss." You sip the potion. It tastes like regret with a touch of rosemary. Your mouth puckers. Your soul sighs. Then comes the lecture. Dr. Quintus explains that most illness is caused by imbalanced humours. You've probably heard of them. Blood phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. According to him, yours are having a very bad argument. Too much heat in the blood, he says. Possibly from stress. Or lion proximity. You nod again. Of course. Lion proximity. He prescribes a few remedies. Drink a cup of boiled cabbage water daily. Sleep under a cedar tree during a full moon. Avoid cheese made by widows, he won't explain why. You promise to do some of that. He then offers to lance your earlobes to release mental pressure. You decline. You ask gently whether Roman doctors were always this creative. Absolutely, he beams. I studied in Alexandria, under a man who claimed to be the reincarnation of Hippocrates. He mostly treated ducks. Medicine in Rome, as it turns out, is a mixed bag. Some doctors trained in Greece or Egypt and wrote actual treatises. Others relied on folk remedies, superstition, or whatever happened to be fermenting nearby. Scholars still debate whether Roman medicine was effective or just noisy. You leave Dr. Quintus's home with a small pouch of dried herbs, a mild headache, and a leech that somehow made it into your sandal. You walk on dazed and pass another clinic, this one busier run by a woman who appears to be stitching a gladiator's thigh while yelling at him for not ducking faster. You nod respectfully and keep moving. You duck into a small tavern. You need to sit and maybe eat something that hasn't been prescribed as a laxative. The tavern is dim, smoky, and mercifully quiet. You order a bowl of lentils and some lukewarm wine. The lentils are overcooked. The wine is slightly fizzy, but it's the closest thing you've had to a hug in days. Across the room, a man coughs once dramatically, then stands on a bench and shouts, "The plague is here." He's quickly booed and escorted out by the tavern owner, who then mumbles something about dry lungs and moist brains. You finish your meal in silence. You feel better. Not healed, but stable. No one has yelled at you in 10 full minutes. That's a record. You step back into the street. A woman walks past you with a cart full of garlic. A dog wears a tiny helmet. 2 children chant a rhyme about vomit and Saturn. And just like that, you feel ready to continue, even if your humours are still arguing. You shuffle back out onto the street full of lentils and questionable diagnostics, breathing in the distinctly Roman cocktail of spiced incense, donkey sweat, and simmering fish sauce. You're determined to take it easy. Just a light stroll, a calming walk through the nicer parts of town. Maybe observe some respectable Roman citizens doing respectable Roman things. Instead, you're introduced to Roman pets. It starts innocently. A woman walks past holding a basket lined with linen. Inside a ferret in a miniature toga. You do a double take. She nods at you like this is entirely normal. You keep walking. A boy walks past, dragging what appears to be a tortoise with a tiny cart strapped to its shell. The tortoise is not participating enthusiastically. Then you spot a man feeding figs to a hawk perched on his arm. He whispers to it. The hawk nods. You blink slowly. Maybe it's just a weird pet district. Nope. You round a corner and come face to face with a monkey riding a goat. The monkey is holding a tiny scroll. The goat is wearing a laurel wreath. The owner, a very proud-looking older woman, waves at you. "Civic mascots," she says. "For the election." You don't ask which office the goat is running for. Animals are everywhere. Dogs in armor. Cats draped across vendor stalls like sleepy statues. A man walks by with a goose on a leash. The goose looks deeply displeased. You ask someone if this is a festival. "No," she says. "It's just Tuesday." You try to pet a small curly-haired dog sitting beside a statue of Mercury. It growls. A pigeon nearby stares at you, judging. You back away. Then you hear the buzzing. Not metaphorical, actual buzzing. A group of men rush by, carrying clay pots swarming with bees. One of them yells, "Don't jostle the queen." Another shouts, "She's moody today." You flatten yourself against a wall. The bees pass without incident. You thank all known deities. You look around and realize there are as many creatures in this city as people. And not just pets. Pests, too. A rat scurries past you, carrying a breadcrumb twice its size. It pauses, looks you up and down, then continues. You feel judged. A crow lands beside you, cocks its head, then drops a walnut at your feet. A moment later, it picks it back up and flies away. A gift revoked. You duck into a shady alley for a break and find a line of ants moving with military precision toward what looks like a discarded fig. It's impressive. You salute. Then you notice something else: cages stacked near the market stalls. Inside are animals from far-off provinces, small lizards, exotic birds, even a sleepy fox, curled into a perfect spiral. Children point at them excitedly. One asks if the fox bites. The vendor says, "Only senators." You like the fox immediately. A merchant tries to sell you a snake. You decline. He insists. Great for luck, and also vermin removal. You tell him you are the vermin. He gives you a discount. You run. Eventually, you stumble into the Campus Martius, the large open field near the river where Romans come to play train picnic and occasionally argue about poetry. It's open, breezy, free of, for now, most animals. You sit under a tree and watch as a group of boys play a game involving a leather ball and a lot of shouting. A dog joins in, steals the ball, and runs off. No one stops him. Nearby, a woman trains a parrot to squawk. Vote for Claudius on command. The parrot gets halfway through before launching into a profanity-laced tangent. She sighs. A man jogs past barefoot, trailed by two greyhounds. He looks serene. The dogs look like they just committed tax fraud and are fleeing the scene. Rome, it turns out, isn't just a city of marble and blood and fire. It's also a city of feathers, fur, and occasional fur-covered chaos. Historians often focus on the emperors, the battles, the laws, but daily Roman life. It included fleas, fish tanks, and feral roosters. Scholars remain divided on whether Romans truly loved their animals or merely tolerated them until mealtime. Some records show deep affection, tombstones for beloved dogs, poems about birds, even portraits. Others suggest utility came first: dogs for guarding cats, for rats, geese, for alarm systems. You believe both. You rise from your shady spot as the sun dips lower, casting golden light over the Tiber. A cat slinks past, brushing your leg like it owns you. It does. You sigh deeply. Then step in something warm. A goat bleats from somewhere behind you. You're not even surprised anymore. The moment you think your day can't get weirder, you find yourself standing in front of a Roman mirror, squinting at your own face, while a woman smears crushed beetle paste onto your cheeks. "Don't flinch," she scolds. "This is imported from Hispania." You were just trying to find shade and maybe a place to sit. Instead, you walked past what looked like a quiet side street and got pulled gently but firmly into a Roman beauty salon, or what passes for one a stone room filled with bronze tools, gossip, and the overwhelming scent of rancid rose oil. You are now apparently undergoing a makeover. "You need help," says Junior, the woman in charge. "You look like you've been cursed by a goat and kissed by disappointment." She's not wrong. You try to explain that you're not from here, that you don't even own a comb, and that your skin is not accustomed to beetle goo. She hushes you with a raised eyebrow and continues dabbing something onto your forehead. Another woman appears holding a wooden tray. "Time for the wig fitting." "Wait," you say, panicking. "Why do I need—" "You're in Rome," Junior interrupts. "You always need a wig. The wig is heavy and warm. It smells faintly of lavender, and definitely of another person's scalp. It's also incredibly styled, braided and pinned and shaped into something resembling a fruit basket balanced on a beehive. You're now 2 inches taller, extremely self-conscious, and 70% beeswax. Next comes the teeth. "They're not bad," Junior mutters. "Just rustic." You're handed a twig dipped in vinegar and pumice, and told to scrub until your mouth feels like it's been sandblasted. You comply mostly because the alternative appears to be someone else doing it for you, with less patience. The final touch, a dab of soot around your eyes. "For mystery," Junior says. "You now resemble someone who's either about to seduce a senator or rob his estate. You're not sure which." Across the room, another woman is having hot wax poured on her legs. She's not screaming, which makes you think she's either incredibly brave or completely numb. A man walks in, sits casually, and starts plucking his own eyebrows using a sharpened fishbone. No one blinks. Roman beauty standards, you realize, are no joke. Plucked, scrubbed, painted, perfumed and powdered, being considered presentable in Rome is a full-time job. Especially if you're a woman, or happen to be a man with ambitions beyond looking vaguely upright. You remember reading once somewhere in the future that Roman women used lead-based powders for that pale, divine glow, that many wore false teeth made from ivory, or even someone else's that wigs were often taken from slaves or imported at staggering prices. You're now living that truth. Literally. One of the assistants casually mentions that the wig you're wearing was probably donated by a German captive. You try not to think about it. Another client enters, an elegant woman with a fan and a voice like velvet knives. She glances at you and says, "Oh, new." You nod. She smiles. Keep the mystery. Rome loves mystery. She sits and begins discussing her latest romantic escapade, which involves a senator, a runaway cart, and something called a honey trap. You pretend not to listen. You fail. Meanwhile, the gossip flies like arrows. Did you hear Claudia's dog got a better dowry than her cousin? I saw Marcus Rufus buying figs again. Alone. Scandalous. Did you hear the emperor's new mistress has a sixth toe? You nod along as if this is all extremely normal. After nearly an hour of grooming, you're offered a mirror. You look spectacularly confused. Your skin is pink. Your eyes are outlined. Your wig is a structural masterpiece. You smell like someone set a garden on fire and then put it out with fermented wine. Junior claps. You'll turn heads. Will they stay turned, you ask? She winks. If they value aesthetics. You leave the salon dazed and polished. The sun bounces off your oiled forehead. A small child bows as you pass. A man trips. A pigeon coos in what sounds like approval. A vendor offers you a discount. You look like someone who might own property. You thank him. Another man whispers, "Nice wig." You nod regally. It's all about confidence now. Experts still debate how much time the average Roman spent on grooming. Some say hours a day. Others believe the most elaborate rituals were reserved for the elite. But everyone agrees, appearances mattered. Status was not just wealth, it was scent polish and well-maintained eyebrows. You finally find a quiet corner to sit, lean back, and let the beeswax melt gently into your scalp. You close your eyes and exhale. Rome has taught you many things: how to walk in sandals, how to fake divinity, how to spot an angry ferret, and now how to look beautiful while doing it. Feeling like a freshly varnished vase with trust issues, you strut down the street with your waxy wig, glowing cheeks, and soot-smeared eyes. People do double takes. One woman clutches her pearls. A man nearly walks into a column. You're not sure if they're impressed or horrified. But honestly, you'll take either. For the first time since arriving in Rome, you're not limping, panicking, or covered in poultry debris. You're confident, which is precisely when dinner happens. Or rather, dinner invites itself into your evening in the form of a trumpet blast and a herald shouting "Cena" at the Domus Varius. All are welcome if they bring wine or novelty. You were planning to fade into a shadowy alley and quietly remove your scalp-denting wig. But your new social standing, and apparently your mysterious eyeliner, have drawn attention. You says a young noblewoman, her arms stacked with fig baskets, are clearly interesting. Come. Domus Varius has heated tiles. You glance at your reflection in a bronze plate. You look like the ghost of a mildly seductive senator. You nod. The Domus is enormous, unnecessarily decadent and already thrumming with guests. You enter through a marble arch where a man in a goat costume welcomes guests by quoting Virgil while playing the pan flute. You give him a respectful nod. He honks in reply. Inside, it's a chaotic paradise. Mosaics of questionable taste, statues wearing wigs, a fountain, spitting rosewater, and couches. Actual couches for reclining while eating. You're handed a goblet before you even find your seat. The wine tastes like someone boiled raisins in optimism and regret. And then comes the food. Roman cena or dinner wasn't just a meal. It was a performance, a test of stamina, a tasting menu curated by a person who once licked a flamingo and thought, "Let's do more of that." The first course is olives. Simple, salty, safe. Then snails arrive. They're served in a puddle of something green and smell faintly of victory. Then dormice. Yes, mice. Tiny, roasted, stuffed with nuts and honey. One of them is still smiling. You try not to look directly at it. You chew. It's crunchy. Sweet. Not awful. Disturbingly fine. The host Varius himself enters in a robe made entirely of dyed peacock feathers. He throws his arms wide. "Let us eat until our ancestors weep with envy." The crowd cheers. Someone throws a grape. The next dish is garum-glazed sow's udder. You don't ask. You just eat. Then a dish arrives with more legs than it should. The server smiles. stuffed flamingo tongue pickled fish sauce glaze. You sip more wine. The man beside you is deep in philosophical debate with a gold-painted actor about whether Saturn invented cheese. The woman across from you casually flosses her teeth with a peacock feather. Someone plays the lyre. Someone else juggles figs. A third person stands on a couch and recites love poetry badly. You recline, dazed and full as dessert arrives. Honeyed dates, almond cakes, and something that looks suspiciously like a jellied eel molded into a dolphin. You take a bite. It winks at you. Scholars remain divided on the reality of Roman culinary excess. Some believe elite meals were exaggerated in literature. Others argue the wealthy absolutely served giraffe knee and flamingo bits just to up each other. You believe it. Because now the final course is announced, the dramatic unburdening. Every guest must recite one truth, one lie, and one regret before the gods of digestion. You're handed a fennel sprig and told to speak. You clear your throat. Truth, you say, wobbling. I do not belong here. The crowd hums approvingly. Honest. Mysterious. Lie, you say. I once dated the Vestal Virgin who invented foot lotion. A gasp. Regret, you say. Eating the jellied eel dolphin. Applause. Someone hands you more wine. Later, much later, you're outside again, seated on a column fragment, burping gently and watching a dog try to romance a statue. You pull off the wig. Your scalp weeps with relief. Rome has fed you, tested you, dressed you, undressed your ego. And now it's digested you. You lean back, smile faintly, and whisper, "Still here." Then a man with a lyre trips over your foot and falls face first into a wine vat. Because Rome doesn't do endings. Only more beginnings. Morning greets you like a scribe, with a hangover quiet grimacing and slightly sticky. You wake beneath the stars. Not in a bed. Not even on a mat. You're on what appears to be someone's decorative rooftop mosaic depicting Neptune riding a dolphin who looks both heroic and deeply constipated. You're also wearing half a toga, someone else's sandals, one wooden, one leather, and a faint scent of fennel and regret. You sit up slowly. The city is just beginning to stir. Smoke rises from bakeries. Market stalls creak open. Distant dogs bark, birds squawk, and someone is already yelling about figs being overpriced. You stagger to the edge of the rooftop, look down, and realize this is not your villa. This might not even be your district. A boy sweeping the street spots you, waves and shouts, "You're the dolphin man." You give him a thumbs up. You don't know what it means, but it feels right. You shuffle downstairs, nodding to a goat in a stairwell who eyes you like you owe him money. On the street, someone hands you a stale bread crust and says, "For the poet who called Saturn a cabbage." You accept it. You might have said that. Rome is generous like that, especially when you've accidentally become a walking legend of minor party chaos. As you wander unsure whether to find a bath, a doctor, or a hole to disappear into, you hear something familiar, a clang, a grunt, and the unmistakable sound of a wooden sword smacking a training dummy. You follow the noise. It's a ludus, a gladiator training school. The gate is open. Inside, men are sweating, shouting, and swinging weapons with the kind of focus usually reserved for unpaid taxes. You move to leave quietly. Then a gruff voice barks, "You!" You freeze. A towering figure approaches. Bald-scarred, draped in a short cloak, and carrying a gladius like it's part of his nervous system. "You're that sponge poet," he growls. You nod. "Among other things, you look like a broken sandal," he says. "Ever held a real sword?" You consider lying. You consider running. Instead, you say, "Not on purpose." "Perfect," he replies, shoving one into your hands. "Let's fix that. You've been drafted. Again. This time not for war, but for entertainment. Because apparently today's training matches are open to the public, and someone thought it'd be funny to toss in that weird guy from the dinner party. You're thrown a padded tunic, a creaky leather belt, and a wooden shield held together with what might be dried fig paste. The instructor, Brutus, because of course his name is Brutus, lines you up with other amateurs. One is a baker's apprentice, one is a man being punished for tax fraud. One claims to be descended from Romulus, but cries when sand gets in his sandals. Your opponent, a wiry teen named Flaccus, who's definitely been training for more than a week. He grins at you, then sneezes dramatically. "Hay fever," he says. "Cool," you reply. The match begins with a horn. You panic immediately and drop your sword. Flaccus pauses, confused. You pick it up again and try your best. I'm confident face. It looks like indigestion. You lunge. He sidesteps. You spin, almost fall, recover. Accidentally hit him with your shield, not the edge, the flat. It makes a bonk noise. He laughs. You both keep going. To your surprise, something clicks. Not skill, no, but timing. Rhythm. You dodge. You parry. You flail. And suddenly the crowd, which has grown to include a small group of cheese vendors, and at least one mime is clapping. Not because you're good, because you're alive. You and Flaccus fight for nearly 2 minutes. At one point you sneeze. He drops his sword. You both pause and declare it a divine draw. Brutus approaches. He squints, then nods. You're terrible, he says, but weirdly watchable. He tosses you a small token. Free bath token. You stink. You thank him like he just knighted you. Later soaking in a public bath that smells like pine resin and ambition, you reflect. Rome doesn't care where you came from. It barely cares where you're going. But if you show up, if you sweat and flail and eat the dormouse without complaint, it gives you a seat, even if it's next to the mime. Scholars still debate how much glory the average gladiator achieved. Many were slaves, criminals, or desperate freemen. Some gained fame, most gained scars. A few gained freedom. You gained a bruised thigh and a bath token, and somehow a bit more respect for yourself. You're clean. Sort of. Your skin's been scrubbed raw by a bath slave, wielding a pumice stone with the enthusiasm of a man exfoliating his enemies. Your fingernails have never looked better. Your hair smells faintly of crushed bay leaves and hot bronze, and for once your toga is relatively symmetrical. You emerge from the thermae into the soft golden haze of late afternoon, feeling briefly human. That sensation lasts exactly 17 seconds, right up until someone yells, "Emergency census." You freeze. "Census." Another man shouts. "All free residents must report. No hiding, no running." You glance down at yourself. You look reasonably Roman. That's something. You begin moving with the crowd, which is surging toward the census station like a very well-groomed stampede. The Roman census, you remember, just barely, is a bureaucratic spectacle. Every few years, census catalogue every citizen name. Occupation, wealth dependence, and questionable livestock. It's part record-keeping, part moral policing, and part neighborhood gossip marathon. You're funneled into a dusty courtyard where a series of wooden booths are set up. Behind each sits a scribe with a stylus, a wax tablet, and the dead-eyed glare of someone who's been recording goat-related professions all day. You step forward. A bored scribe looks you up and down. Name you hesitate. Marcus Tunicus. He raises one eyebrow. Sounds fake. You smile. Sounds very Roman. He shrugs. Occupation. You panic. What have you done lately? Spoken word, profit bath, sponge technician, accidental, gladiator, goat handler, part-time ferret, courier. He blinks. So, entertainer. Let's go with that. Property. You hold up your barley sack. He squints. You mean literally. You nod. Livestock. Once you say, temporarily. He doesn't ask. He just writes, 0. Dependence. Only emotionally. Another shrug. Another scribble. Criminal charges. You hesitate. Fig-based theological confusion. He jots down minor blasphemy. Final question. Have you insulted Jupiter in the last fortnight? Not directly. Good enough. He hands you a stamped clay token. You're officially counted. Try not to embarrass your district. You wander off days now a documented Roman. Technically. You stop by a fountain to admire your new token. It bears the symbol of your tribus, your Roman voting district. You have civic value now. Somewhere on a wax ledger you exist. It's oddly moving and immediately terrifying, because not moments later, a man with a scroll accosts you, citizen. You're eligible for military service. You squeak. Already served. I have blisters to prove it. He frowns. Discharged. You nod so hard your wig. Yes, you're still wearing it. Habit now tilts sideways. He grumbles. Fine. Then perhaps you'd like to register for public works. Sewer maintenance, statue cleaning, crowd control for the next goat election. You flee. You duck into a shadowy arcade, breathing hard. Someone hands you a fig. You eat it without asking. Behind you a man mutters census day. Always gets the heart rate up. You nod. It's the wax tablets. They judge you. He laughs. I claim to be a war hero. I once helped hold a ladder. You shake hands. Rome loves ambition, even if it's exaggerated. You wander through the streets now humming with post-census energy. Vendors shout that they're now officially licensed fig sellers. A woman proclaims she's a certified goat midwife. A child shouts, I exist, and throws an apple into the Tiber. You pass a group of census officials eating cold lentils and comparing bizarre entries. One claims a man listed his spouse as the sea. Another claims someone tried to count their toga collection as dependents. Was it embroidered, someone asks? Yes. Makes sense. The census wasn't just a bureaucratic tool, it was identity theatre. For citizens, it determined social class voting rights, tax obligations, and seating priority at public events. It was Rome's way of saying, we see you, we rank you. Scholars still debate how accurate the records were. With bribes, aliases, and outright lies, the census was as much wishful thinking as it was data collection. You pass a plaque that reads, censorship is sacred. Truth is elastic. You nod. That feels right. You return to your spot under the cypress trees, clutching your token and half a fig. You sit. Exhale. The light turns warm and buttery, casting the city in a flattering glow. You are, for now, an official Roman. A statistic with a name, a number with a past. You're counted, you're here. And tomorrow, someone might try to tax you for breathing too enthusiastically. But tonight you belong. The sun has begun its slow descent behind the rooftops of Rome, gilding the stone streets in amber light. You've been walking for what feels like hours past forums, echoing with fading debates, past fountains where children splash their hands, and past statues that seem to nod at you knowingly, as if even the marble is starting to recognize your face. And now you've entered the one place you've tried all day to avoid, the public latrina, not the latrine itself. You've already had that adventure, thank you. No, this is the building next door, the public library. It's quieter than you expected. Tiled floors, faded frescoes of muses dancing through meadows, and the smell of wax ink and old papyrus. In the center of the room, a man is snoring into a scroll. No one bothers him. You tiptoe past a row of niches where scrolls rest in neat bundles tied with red thread. A young girl dusts each one carefully while humming a tune that may or may not be about Saturn's dental hygiene. A librarian looks up and squints at you. Reading, you nod. He nods back. Genre, you hesitate. Historical mistakes. He disappears and returns moments later with a scroll labelled Disastrous Festivals and Cursed Aqueducts. Perfect. You seat yourself at a stone bench and unroll the scroll gently. The script curls across the parchment like an overly confident centurion, bold, smug, slightly smeared. You begin to read. A story of a festival where a bull escaped and trampled a senator's dinner. A tale of a water pipeline built in reverse. A legal debate that turned into a bakery brawl when someone insulted a tribune's sponge cake. You read and you laugh, softly then louder. A librarian glances up. You stifle it with a cough. The scroll slips off your lap. You fumble, catch it, knock over an inkpot. A small fountain of black spatters across the floor. The snoring man wakes, mumbles, I told you the goats were sacred, and falls back asleep. You whisper an apology and begin dabbing at the ink with your sleeve. The librarian sighs, hands you a cloth, and says, You're new. You nod. That obvious? He shrugs. Rome notices everything, but it rarely remembers it in the same order. You thank him. He waves you off. You return the scroll and wander deeper into the library. Here the niches grow stranger. Scrolls with titles like 13 Ways to Predict a Crop Failure and Mars Hates When You Yawn fill the walls. In a corner, a half-blind scholar mumbles to himself while tracing his finger over faded lines. Truth, he says, is just a well-wrapped lie that survived a few winters. You nod slowly. Rome teaches you that. You settle at another bench, this time near a window. The view frames the skyline terracotta rooftops, birds drifting lazily and smoke rising in soft columns. Somewhere a lyre plays. You find another scroll. This one is titled Letters from a Retired Centurion. You read, "It's quiet, beautiful, melancholy. A soldier writing home about the ache in his knees, about missing bread that isn't boiled in wine, about watching stars over Syria and wondering if Jupiter was just a trick of the torchlight." You feel something shift in your chest. Empathy, maybe. Or heartburn from that stuffed dormouse earlier. Either way, you close your eyes and sit with it. Rome is overwhelming. Loud, absurd, glorious. But here in this dusty corner, it's human. It remembers. It reflects. It keeps letters. Outside, the city continues to buzz. But here, time bends. You are not a tourist or a mistake in borrowed sandals. You're a reader, a witness. You rise, return the scroll, and offer the librarian your thanks. He nods. "Come back before you forget how." "I'll try," you say. He smiles faintly. Rome makes that hard. You step outside. The noise returns instantly. A man is shouting about lemons. A dog is chasing a cart. Somewhere, a child is singing a very anatomically incorrect version of the birth of Venus. But you carry the quiet with you now. A stillness you didn't expect to find. And a scroll's worth of lessons about Chaos Inc. and centurions who just wanted a decent nap. You walk slowly now, not because you're tired, though your knees creak like an aging amphora, but because Rome itself seems to have shifted gears. The din has softened, the shadows have stretched, and the heat has uncoiled its grip. It's evening. The city's pulse is still there. Of course, someone always arguing, always baking, always falling off a donkey, but it's quieter. Less gladiator, more lullaby. You follow a street you've never taken before. Narrow, sloped, lined with crooked shops and ivy-draped balconies. Above you, laundry flutters in the wind like pale surrender flags. You pass a shoemaker arguing with his own tools, a woman combing her hair with a knife, two old men throwing walnuts at each other without clear provocation. And then, music, soft-stringed, tentative. You turn a corner and discover a courtyard half swallowed by vines and old statues. There's no stage, no crowd. Just one man seated on a stool, plucking a cithara and humming under his breath. He's singing about the moon and wine and losing a sandal during a romantic misunderstanding. You sit on a stone bench. Others sit too, quietly. A baker dusted with flour, a soldier with his helmet in his lap, a woman with 3 sleepy children leaning on her shoulders like human satchels. No one claps, no one yells. They just listen. For the first time all day, no one is trying to sell you something, recruit you for something, or dress you like a fruit basket. Just music, and dusk, and the strangely comforting smell of roasting onions from somewhere nearby. The song ends. The man smiles, bows his head. No words. He just keeps playing. You lean back, eyes closed. You think about the bath, the scrolls, the goat, the ferret. The time you were mistaken for a prophet, and again for a mime, and again for a scribe who owed someone a lot of barley. You think about how just days ago, or was it only this morning, you didn't know how to walk in sandals or fake your way through a census. Now you can. Sort of. Rome hasn't made you stronger. Not exactly. But it's made you wider. Like a river, like a scar, like a story. You open your eyes. The sky is violet now, streaked with soft orange. Someone lights a torch. Another lights a pipe. You rise, give the musician a nod. He returns it, still humming. You walk, back toward wherever home is supposed to be for you tonight. You'll probably share a mat with a snoring baker or a philosophy student who thinks cabbage causes jealousy. You don't care. You'll sleep. Rome breathes as you do. Heavy, reluctant, beautiful. And you've survived. Somehow. As you climb the final steps to the villa rooftop, your unofficial pigeon-dotted, breeze-kissed perch, you look out over the city one more time. Temples gleam. Fires flicker. A dog barks at a cloud. And you whisper, not for the first time, "Still here." Then you lie back on your mat, close your eyes, and wait for sleep to find you. The rooftops are hushed now. Far below, Rome continues its eternal hum carts, rattling over worn stones, the last few hawkers packing up unsold vegetables. A dog, still arguing with the moon. But it all feels distant, softened, as if the city itself is beginning to close its eyes. You lie still beneath a canvas of stars, your makeshift bedding warm from the day's sun. The wind whispers gently over the tiles, tugging at the corner of your toga like a lullaby. Somewhere in the dark, a lyre plucks a slow tune. Maybe a farewell. Maybe a dream. Your body relaxes. Slowly, finally. The aches from marching the sting of bathhouse, scrubbing the sour tang of mystery stews, they all begin to melt. The city no longer presses on you. It holds you gently now, like sand that shifts to your shape. Above you, constellations take their places. Familiar, foreign, eternal. You follow their patterns with heavy eyes. The stars don't judge your sandals or your fake name or your confusion over sponge etiquette. They simply shine. And tonight, that's enough. Let the lions rest. Let the scrolls curl. Let the census tally one less worry. You're safe for now. Seen. Counted. Full of strange food and stranger memories. You've wandered through history's busiest city, and somehow, despite gladiators, taxes, and mildly possessed poultry, you've made it to the quiet. Breathe. Let the warmth settle into your chest. Let your thoughts drift light as steam rising from a fig cake. You're not a soldier, or a senator, or a sponge boy anymore. You're just here. Still breathing, still curious, still you. And as your eyelids begin to sink, as the noise of Rome fades to a distant hum, know this. You made it. End of script. Sweet dreams.